I found my wife's secret messages with her ex. They planned to meet in Vegas and stay at a hotel. Next I kicked her out, but it wasn't the worst part. Hello everyone, let me begin by mentioning that my wife and I are quite open, perhaps too open about our past, prior lovers and so on. She's my second wife. My first wife was a huge believer in faithfulness, and we split up because she cheated. The first wife and I have a son. My wife has a daughter from her previous marriage. We've been married for 4 years, and our small blended family works well together. As I previously stated, we are perhaps overly honest about our former relationships. Her first husband was a serial cheater. He was a musician who slept with ladies at his shows. She stumbled across his emails and discovered that he was associated with 4 other women, one of whom he had gotten pregnant. She wanted to save their relationship since she didn't want their child to grow up in a broken family, so she sought counsel from one of her old internet acquaintances. We will call him Ryan. They had been pals for 6 years but had never met. They were writing partners. In fact, before they lost contact, they were working on a novel together. She tells me that when she reached out for help, he was extremely nice and had actually been advising a lot of techniques to get past infidelity or what you should talk to an attorney about in general, as a good friend. They decided to rewrite their book at some point. According to her, they would discreetly flirt, but because they lived on opposite ends of the nation, they lacked the means to act. Throughout this, she came to the conclusion that her marriage was over and ceased attempting to save it. I suppose I've checked out. She and Ryan had a mutual attraction, and before the end of the year, he had flown out to meet her. She filed for divorce shortly after the romance became physical, and Ryan moved later that year to be with her. To cut a long tale short, her 4-year-old daughter did not warm up to him. As she claims, he did nothing wrong. She was just not coping well after the divorce and didn't like having someone replace her father. My wife informed him that they needed to take a break because of this, as well as the fact that he can be a bit arrogant at times. She had only intended for it to be a temporary pause, but he was supposedly so distraught that he'd traveled so far just to be turned down 3 months in, that he ended it completely. After months had passed, they reconnected to try to finish the novel. During this period they resumed sleeping together, but just for physical reasons. They got close to finishing the book, but then she started dating me. So they stopped sleeping together. She felt strange having an ex around after she entered into a serious relationship. So, by her own admission, she stopped responding to his emails, which were all book-related, on a regular basis, and stopped working on it as much. He became frustrated after a few months of this and barred her from everything. Which leads us to a month ago. After 4 or 5 years of no touch, he messages her unexpectedly. He developed CO and almost died. Ryan contacted her because, allegedly, during their time apart, he revised the book without her input, got it published, wrote and published a sequel, and launched his work, which came dangerously near to remaining unfinished if he died. He wanted to make it clear that if anything happened to him, he wanted the rights to this thing transferred to her, as she knows how it will finish and help develop the plot. Okay, fair enough. That truly sounds good. But then they start talking. He appears to be developing a comic adaptation and has encouraged her to join the project. He had finished a lot of the work and she was extremely excited, demonstrating and explaining to me who all the characters were, their backstories, and what she thought he did wrong with the design. She also read the first book and is telling me which names he altered, which characters were and weren't in their version, and the plot differences. She seemed to be having a good time with it. I knew they had written together. She mentioned it earlier, but I had no clue they had developed a whole universe. I can see it was something very important to her. I'm concerned since she appears to be considering accepting his offer. Every time they've worked on something in the past, it has resulted in sexual activity. And there is some sexual content in their literature. I'm not the jealous type and I don't want to ruin a dream she had buried. But I do not want to repeat history. I'll admit that I decided to overhear their chat. And, while he appears to be on the same page and is just talking about the project, she is eager to learn more about his personal life. I wouldn't describe it in a flirting way, but she asked him if he was currently seeing someone. When he said, no, he's too busy. Relationships just get in the way. She advised him to get back out there. That celibacy doesn't look good on him. We're fairly candid about our past sexual experiences, so I know her ex-husband was bad at it. And once, when inebriated, she stated to Ryan, "Don't let a great sex make you think it'll be a great relationship." How the hell do I proceed? I know she was emotionally broken by her ex-husband, which is why she cheats. But she did cheat on this man. I have met him. He appears to be a straight-talking guy, yet their past suggests that anything may happen. I'd like to contact my wife with my issues, but I don't want to come across as pushy or domineering. I want her to have a creative outlet because she glows in ways I've never seen before when she talks about this book about which I knew so little. It appears that she forced something that was very essential to her to be unimportant. I want it for her, but I don't want their encounters to escalate anymore, as they have 3 times now. Update 1. My wife's ex-boyfriend resurfaced in her life, requesting to collaborate on a shared writing project she abandoned years ago but is now financially successful with. I'm not sure who this woman is. The amount of deception is so extensive and deliberate that I find it difficult to believe that I've spent the last 6 years of my life with this individual. I decided to sit down with her and tell her how I felt about the situation, that I was glad she rediscovered her old writing and that it would be great for her to pursue it as a hobby or a profession because she's pretty good at it and clearly enjoys it. At the time she agreed and stated that having Ryan, her ex, around would be a bad thing, as she was concerned that he would use this as a ploy to talk to her again. When she stated these things, I was like, okay, cool. She has the same concerns that I do, and she's not dismissing my feelings or labeling me controlling. In fact, we're on the same page. Oh, how wrong I was. That was supposed to be the conclusion of the conversation. However, for some reason my brain began to behave strangely, and I began to suspect that everything was going too well. When she got in the shower yesterday morning, I grabbed her phone and walked inside. His phone number was there and their entire discussion had been wiped. It hadn't been 2 days before. Red flags. I checked Facebook Messenger. She's discussing her future work trip to Vegas. Apparently this 2-day event has been cancelled due to CO, but she has been telling me she will go. They're talking about staying at a hotel a town over and giving each other images of their Vegas vacations, so she'll have something to show me if I ask. She's talking about eateries they can visit. There will be a full moon when he arrives, which will look amazing on the beach. Oh, and he's not on the East Coast as he claimed. He recently returned to town since the jerk can afford to reside here. He showed her where he lives on Google Maps, and it takes all in me not to drive my vehicle right into his living room. A month ago she stated she needed to pick up her brother from the airport. No. That was him. The texts don't go much further back than that, but they include talking about things from the years they reportedly haven't communicated. I read one of his lines and it made my heart race with his madness. Yeah, we are just buddies. I haven't seen you in 7 years, and I'm within you 15 minutes after getting off the aircraft. Best pals perhaps. So she isn't just planning to sleep with him. She has been doing this for months. That went to her mother's a few weeks ago where she spent the night. Yeah, I haven't approached her yet, but her smile makes me so angry right now. I'll do my best not to say anything till after Christmas. The kids don't need the holiday to serve as a daily reminder of this, but I'm definitely going to snap and approach her today or tomorrow because swallowing this with a grin is very difficult. Honestly, I'll be lucky if I don't take a bath with a toaster. I'm losing my mind right now. Edit 1. I'm gathering information, photos and screenshots of her location and will speak with a lawyer tomorrow. Edit 2. I visited with my brother's divorce attorney and we are making preparations. I'm documenting everything, including her communications, whereabouts, and where she claims to be going. I will face her on the 2nd of next month after she has gone to the hotel with him. I'm making sure I have my ducks in a row and trying not to ruin Christmas for the kids. Edit 3. The flood of suicidal thoughts has subsided, and I am grateful to everyone who left encouraging remarks for me. It finally got me over the hump. Edit 4. I'd like to thank everyone who gave me advice when I first posted this yesterday. It distracted my mind from darker thoughts and gave my hands something to do. I've been communicating with my brother for support and have continued to observe their interactions. She observed me acting strangely, so I told her it was simply me having the blues over my aunt's death anniversary, which was enough to keep her from understanding I knew everything. I spent 2 hours today in my car outside a McDonald's, using their Wi-Fi to read her emails, and they communicate using Yahoo Messenger. She's on this with her tits out and a ton of photos, all of which I'm keeping. Really cute. There's one of her posing with flowers I gave her for her birthday. They've been meeting since around March. Some selected quotes from her. I can't simply start talking about the book all the time. I mentioned you twice when he and I were together. If I start talking about you and the book too much right now, he'll assume something's up. You should shave since your beard is like knives. I almost had to apply chapstick on my chin and beneath my nose from him. You'll get it right before you leave here. I want him to kiss you after you spent the afternoon swallowing me. Honestly, I feel compelled not to beat this man to death. I won't do it, but the fact that he's so intentionally cruel makes me want to wear his teeth as a necklace. Update 2. A heads up. I started writing this the day it happened, and I'm not going to change it. So, if some of my feelings don't quite match what my remarks said in the last few days, that is why. I have some stuff to accomplish today, so I might not react for a while. I don't ever want to go through this again. This was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, and I'm still twitching like a tweaker from time to time. She departed for either work or Ryan's today. I'm not sure where she went, but she was gone. I tried to find her whereabouts, but either she had turned off location services or my phone was having problems. I did not have the means to serve her. That happens later this week, but I had to face her before she noticed what I was doing, so she wouldn't have time to concoct some effective lies. When I heard my garage door open, I switched on the camera. She enters absolutely ignorant. I tell her she should sit down because we need to chat. She gives me the deer in the headlights expression before sitting down and asking what's wrong. I ask, "Why don't you tell me?" She plays dumb, but I can tell she knows she's been found out. She asks me again what is wrong. I ask her what's really going on with Ryan. She says nothing. She has not heard from him. I redirect and decide not to address her directly, telling her that I am uncomfortable with her working with him and that it is not something I can overcome. She's completely agreeable and anxiously questions why I changed my mind so suddenly, and why I'm acting the way I do. I just shake my head and say something like, "I wanted to be understanding about it, but I got weird vibes from him, and I'd rather they didn't talk." She says that he no longer means anything to her, and that she was just thrilled to see the book published. I told her that he practically stole from her and she's being far too understanding about it, that she should sue him, and she agreed. By now she's probably thinking she's out of this and will end her relationship with Ryan as soon as she has the opportunity. But then I tell her that the whole incident has really stressed me out, and I'm going to take the next week off work. I inform her that I spoke with my son's mother and she agreed to keep him that weekend so I could go to Vegas with her. That's why I spent so much time the other day discussing the details of my son's trip with his mother. Or at least that's what I'd like her to think. Deadpan expression. I began talking about how CO has closed down a lot of things, and I'm not sure what's still open in Vegas. She cuts me off and informs me that it was indeed cancelled today. The conversation continues as follows, paraphrased of course. Me. It was cancelled last month. Her. No, he informed us today since he wasn't sure if it was off till today. Me. I know it was cancelled last month. Her. What are you doing? Why do you tell me you want to go and then say it's cancelled? I don't understand what you're doing. Me. It was cancelled last month. What would you do if I didn't inquire about it? Her. You are freaking me out. It was cancelled today. Me. What were you planning to do in town and where is her hotel? Her. What do you accuse me of? How long have you and Ryan been back together? Her. We have not done anything. Did he tell you that we were? Me. Do not lie to me. I don't want to read everything he texted. It almost made me throw up the first time. I can't believe you did this. Her. I love you. I apologize. He's been contacting me a lot recently and saying some crazy stuff, and I'm not sure how to cope with it. I wanted to tell you this, but I was worried you would do what you're doing right now. I really hoped he would stop on his own. Me. You hadn't seen him in 7 years, and 15 minutes after he got off the plane, you had sex with him. Her. Which plane? What are you now reading? Me. He lives on the street name. Do you want to end this? Please admit what you did so that we can move ahead. Why did you tell me he lived on the East Coast, and did he say anything to you? He regularly lies. It's one of the reasons why we broke up. I told you that. I realized I should not have responded to his communications. There's always drama with him. All of his messages were nice. Then he started talking about missing me again. Like he always does. I was about to tell you. Me. He wanted you to come home and kiss me after you went down on him. I've read your mails. I saw them in both your emails and texts. You are cheating on me and I want you out of this house today. Her. What? I am not cheating on you. If you do not want him around, I will tell him to go. But honey, I am not cheating on you. Is this what he told you? He is lying. Me. Stop it. I told you I checked your messages on your phone. You're going to gather your belongings and go to your parents. I made copies of your emails and took screenshots of your texts. I do not want to show them what you two say to each other, but if you continue to lie to my face, I will. We're finished. Go fetch your things. Despite all of this, she attempted to play foolish and fib. But getting tired of it, I took out my copies of their texts and presented them to her. She glanced at them for 2 seconds before breaking down in tears, like I'd never seen her so upset by anything. I even felt sorry for her for a short while. She apologized for the outburst and wanted to put a stop to it, but he had become possessive and threatened to expose her if she discontinued her relationship with him. I informed her that none of this was in their texts and that she was still lying to me. She planned to spend the weekend with him. She then informed me it was over between them and she'd make him leave. She will never talk to him again. I informed her. I don't care what she does, but I've been talking to a lawyer and the divorce papers will be ready soon. At this point she erupts and says, "You've been talking to a lawyer 4 or 5 times, and I was about to call the authorities because she was closing in on me and yelling. I advise her to relax since I have a camera going. She then proceeds to break down and resembles no one I've ever met. She kept saying things like, 'You just planned all this out.' Smiling to my face. Just planning this all out. And every time she did I reacted with the same, 'Well, look at what you've been planning.' And smiling to my face while you're out performing sex acts." When I asked her why she would do this to us, she initially couldn't give me a straight response. She attempted to convince me it was pointless intercourse. So I said, "Oh, so you ruined us for no reason. That's great." After a while, she became quieter, and I'm not sure if she was being honest or just trying to hurt me, but she clearly messed up with him in her eyes. She called him her soulmate, and I almost started shattering things. I asked her why she didn't abandon me for him in the beginning. I would have understood then, but she says she just needed to get away from him because she knew she'd look horrible in front of her family if she brought him back. Apparently they did not like him either. She also stated that she could never and will never be with him because her ex and daughter would fight her over it. So returning to him legally was never an option. She immediately apologized and appeared to be taken aback by how firm I was about everything. She told me how big of a mistake it was, how much she would change and do everything I asked to remedy the problem. I told her no. She then informed me that we wouldn't be divorced because she could make amends for this. I informed her that there was nothing she could do to win my forgiveness. I will never forgive this, and she had the audacity to act astonished by it. I told her that I had opened an account in another bank and transferred half of the funds from the joint account into it this morning, and that the rest was hers. She can get it herself or I can acquire it for her, but the account will be cancelled. She simply nodded and said we'd probably have to go to the bank together to shut it. She went on and began packing her clothes gently, crying a bit, and, strangely, making warnings every now and again that she had better not leave anything behind. I let everything slide off my shoulders and encouraged her to take pictures of how she left her stuff and her daughter's things so that when she returns she can see I didn't touch them. Her parents have been called and are in amazement. They were both startled that Ryan was involved in any of this, and she spent time apologizing to me before leaving my house. The next day, STBX bombarded my phone with, "I love you. I'm sorry. We can fix this." Texts that made me consider flushing my phone. I wanted to turn it off, but my son's mother had him, so I needed it turned on in case of an emergency or a change in plans when he returned home. So I began responding to her texts by providing screenshots of the worst sections of their conversation and adding nothing of my own. My son's mother returned with my son and brought me food from my favorite Chinese restaurant. I didn't tell my kid the specific reason when I informed him, but he immediately inquired if she cheated because it was so abrupt, and I told him he was correct without further explanation. They stayed for a bit before coming home, and I've just been floating around the house, trying to keep things together. It's been around 2 or 3 days since I started writing this, and I'm headed to the gym, then to my lawyer's. This thing is already far too long, and things are changing so quickly that I could type indefinitely and never finish. My STBX's ex-husband is going to come by and get his daughter's belongings, and I'll do my best to convey to her that if she ever needs me, she may call. I'm also thinking of telling her ex that she ran around with Ryan on him because she has repeatedly stated that he is unaware. But perhaps I won't. That does nothing, really. Anyway, the first combat has been waged, and it appears that I am winning as much as possible given the conditions. Part of me wants to confront Ryan, but I'm clever enough to realize that would be a waste of time and effort. Time better spent working, going to the gym, or finding a way to express my gratitude to my son's mother for being an absolute MVP in my corner during this. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Sorry if this seems incoherent, but it took me a few days to compose. And of course, advancements continue. Update 3. Just before Christmas last year, a little more than 2 months ago, I learned that my wife was cheating on me with an old boyfriend. They had planned a lovely weekend together, but I wrecked everything for them by confronting her. This is going to be long. So, as an update, I have generally avoided contact with my STBX. I tried interacting with her through my lawyer if we had a legitimate reason to speak, but it made me feel like a child avoiding confrontation, even if that wasn't the case. So I opted to speak with her directly a few times. If you've been following the lengthy comment streams from my prior postings, You'll be familiar with what was discussed, but I'll go over it all again here as if it were the first time. The STBX's comments regarding Ryan were inconsistent at first. He was her soulmate one minute and then the one who got away the next. The next moment, he was a predator who refused to leave her alone. Our family and friends have all heard the truth. And the most of them have taken my side on the issue. Given the information I supplied in my lengthy piece, there was little reason to side with her. She has subsequently moved in with her parents for the time being, while I have remained in my house. It was obtained many years before I met her, therefore it is not a divorce issue. Strangely, Ryan, the AP, chose to write me this massive harangue sick of a letter. Only God knows why. It gave me the idea that she must have dumped him in wrath just after I gave her the boot because it contains phrases such, "We were repairing our relationship when you stole her from me. I've loved her for many years, so please don't put anything online about how I'm a cheat." It made me see red, and I wanted to physically assault the man. Then I saw reason again. Since she and my stepdaughter moved in, life in this house has been somewhat lonely. The stepdaughter's room is still vacant and I have to keep the door closed because seeing it empty always bothers me and I can't bring myself to do anything with it yet. She has a father, and he is a terrific father, which is why I still visit her once a week. I take her on bike rides or go out to dine together. When I asked her if she felt safe eating at my house, the poor thing burst into tears. She adores her grandparents but does not enjoy living with them, so she has begun spending more time with her father. Her father has invited me around a few times for a beer. We had a couple discussions regarding our mutual ex and Ryan. I believe I mentioned this in the comments on my last post, but he was aware that she was cheating on him the entire time. I spend a lot more time with my son and his mother now. One of my weekdays coincides with their schedule, so I'll pop in for dinner, and I've started giving him an extra day on weekends, and she usually joins us for dinner on Friday nights. I asked my kid if he wanted to talk about his feelings about my upcoming divorce, and he isn't saying much, but he's hurting. The first couple of times, he simply got this far-off stare and said, "I don't want to even think about her," despite the fact that he loved her and didn't expect her to do this to him. And when he said that, it hit me hard. We're continually thinking about how someone's affair affects us. As if it were a malicious act against us. Yet what she did to me via him hurt more than anything she could have done to me. I've talked treatment with him and his mother, but he swears he's fine. And if he feels he can't handle it, he'll contact us. He's a mature child and I trust his judgment. He is usually fairly open about how he is going. He and I spoke privately for the first time about his mother and my divorce and the reasons for it. I didn't want to at first because he's now screaming about adultery and has a great relationship with his mother, but he asked about it, so I went with nice honesty. I told him that his mother had wounded me just as much, but that what she did was a really poor choice, and that I'm no longer sad about it, albeit it took some time. Speaking of my son's mother, she has been there for me through much of this. She's mostly responsible for me having dinner with them once a week and keeping my son for longer periods of time because she believes it's better for me not to be alone in that house all the time. Many individuals have urged that she and I reunite. If I were to make that decision, I would want to wait until she had completed several treatment sessions, possibly couples therapy, if she was in this ballpark. We did briefly discuss our own divorce and the infidelity that caused it. I've moved on and am no longer bothered by it, yet she discusses it as if she was just caught. It is not the first time I have done this, but I told her I forgive her. I even added this time that, based on how she described the event, it's likely she was preyed upon by some creep since she'd had too many drinks. This wasn't a guy she knew well and had only seen around her workplace a few times. If I recall correctly, he either didn't work in her area or worked at a different location. In either event, she has not seen him since a few days after the incident. It's also difficult to think about since, while it no longer bothers me on a regular basis, the truth is that I was thoroughly enjoying my life until she brought the awful news to me. When that connection began, the STBX helped to make things easier for me. But, once again, just when I think my life is going well and I'm content, infidelity disrupts it. It makes me very hesitant to explore another relationship if this is the outcome of all of my work and effort. All that said, I'm planning a trip to Disney World in July to try to clear my mind. Originally it was meant to be just me, my son's mother and my kid, but I persuaded the STBX to let my stepdaughter come along so she doesn't feel excluded. She'll most likely spend the time banging her next poor soul. But that's no longer my problem. Update 4. Hello again to everyone. It's been about 6 months since my first post on here. In short, one day, my wife of 4 years stated that an ex-boyfriend she used to write with appeared unexpectedly, asking if she might collaborate on an old mutual project. As you would have suspected, she had a long-standing affair. Their nasty emails to each other sickened me since they were so harsh, almost purposely so. It wasn't awful enough that she cheated on me, but he stated he wanted her to return home and meet me with him, so to speak. I maintained my composure for the kids' Christmas. She has a daughter, and I have a son. I confronted her, kicked her out, and avoided making any more contact. Ryan, her AP, sent me a few texts after the fact, claiming that I had no reason to be unhappy because in his opinion, I stole her from him, and that he'd been carrying this one-sided grudge for the last 4 years and spoke as if we had been enemies for quite some time. In short, my STBX's family didn't approve of him, therefore she dumped him. She went on to say they were soulmates, which is why she couldn't turn him down. Well, I've been maintaining my health by working out and working from home, but that will come to an end shortly. I've maintained communication with my stepdaughter through her grandparents and biological father, whom she also cheated on with this man, despite the fact that he has cheated on my STBX several times. He's a decent man to have a beer with, and despite his flaws, he appears to be a good father. I see her twice a week now, but never overnight. Even yet, I've left her former room empty since I find it too depressing to imagine doing anything else with it. She's been my princess, and she always gets happy when she comes to visit or when I show up to take her out to dinner or on a bike ride. After a while, my son concluded that he could benefit from therapy and has started visiting a doctor. His mother, my first wife, and I had been keeping an eye on him because he was quite close to his stepmother. She tried to contact him and apologize, but he refused to communicate with her. He became impetuous and had episodes of angry outbursts unconnected to her. And then I asked him if he believed he would benefit from treatment. He told me he felt betrayed by what she had done, that he loathed her. He missed his stepsister and simply wanted everything to be gone. And I felt deeply for him. I don't think we've ever talked or embraced as often as we have in the last several months. His mother has been on my side for most of this. And we've gotten a lot closer. Initially, she invited me over for dinner a couple of times a week since she thought it was unhealthy for me to spend so much time alone in an empty house. I'm around more frequently now, and we eat dinner together as a family many times per week. My parents and her parents have both seen this and have asked us if we would consider reconciling now that things are going so well between us. We both say we're content with the way things are, but knowing everyone is talking about us makes it tough not to talk about it ourselves. Except for the physical intimacy, we're acting quite similar to each other as we did when we were married, which is both reassuring and nice. But that will soon reach the point where it requires a lengthy discussion. All that has been stated thus far is that nothing will be attempted or discussed until our son's life is stabilized. These changes hurt him in terms of my STBX and how things are going there. According to what I've learned, she recently purchased a condo and is now moving on with her life. Her parents are terribly ashamed of what she has done. In their perspective, my stepdaughter routinely backtalks her mother. I'd like to tell you all that she's in terrible pain or that she's crying all the time, but that's not the case. STBX appears to be about to ruin another guy's life. I did, however, run into Ryan in the grocery store last month. He turned ghostly white and I should not have pointed him out to my brother. He began following him around and shouted variants of, "Prince Charming over here, fat loser is going to eat both those Red Barons tonight before he starts texting your wife." Guys, I forced us to go and we'll go shopping somewhere else. Though I did have a nice laugh over it. Update 5. I was browsing around on an old laptop and stumbled upon this gem of a chat. I altered the names, but this is essentially a copy and paste rendition of how fraudulent these two were. Ex-wife. I'm not sure if I am being paranoid, but I believe my husband is becoming suspicious. I'm not sure what I should do. I'm trying to act normal, but I'm beginning to worry. I am probably simply paranoid. He isn't tracking my phone, computer, or anything. He does try to glance over my shoulder or peek at my screen, though. I don't stop him when he does. We weren't discussing anything suspicious when he peeked. Ryan. I believe the best way to approach this is to maintain your current schedule. If you become more distant, he may notice. But, if you become overly nice, the same rationale applies. If you could do anything, I would suggest that you discuss the story in a professional manner and separate me from it. As a result, it will appear more like a professional connection than an old boyfriend. But I do not know him. I've met him once. Normally I have the honor of assessing the other half's mental aptitude, but I'm flying blind here and entirely trusting you. I say you stay precisely as you are. No change in routine unless you believe the book idea is effective, ex-wife. Okay, that is precisely what I was thinking. Okay, good. He can be a genius or a complete moron, and he is extremely guarded. As a result, interpreting his body language might be difficult at times. But sure, I need to start talking about the book because I believe he is wondering why I am constantly on here with you. I have not addressed the book at all. Ryan made an offhand comment. Oh, he's complaining about his boyfriend again. He needs to leave that jerk, lol. I understand he resides in Wisconsin. Stop whining, lol. Ex-wife. No, he believes you're still married with a son and you're one of my old writing friends. That's pretty much all I've mentioned about you, save for our fling at the end of her ex-husband's name. Ryan. Okay. So, if the matter comes up, think of a small romantic corny gesture I recently made for my wife and how I look like a fool because of it. Lol. The greatest approach to avoid being a threat is if my family and yours are fairly similar. The more domestic I seem, the better. Ex-wife. Yes. I agree. But I don't want to start talking about you too much. I have not done so in the past. Why should I now? If he asks, I'll make things up on the spot. Ryan. Exactly. Ex-wife. I believe I will start getting interested about the book immediately. That way, if I appear ecstatic or stressed, I can use that as an excuse. Ryan. As you mentioned, my wife is doing concept work for it, which is one of the reasons you're excited. It's not a stretch. It establishes that I am a domestic and that she is fully aware of my conduct. And if she isn't worried, why should he? Ex-wife. Yes, I see it. Okay, I can handle it. It's probably all in my head anyway. Ryan. It probably is. Have something ready in case an accusation is made. Like, no. Oh my God. He's married and completely obsessed with his wife. He was telling me all of his pet names, and I was about to sign off. Lol. Ex-wife. Haha. Okay. Ryan. Apologies. I have a bunch of pre-made plots. The Smurf is frequently checking my phone. There is nothing. Ex-wife. We are not new to this. Ryan. Well, it won't be nearly as complicated because any changes in your behavior will be only temporary. Ex-wife. Yes. I believe I can do it, Ryan. You will be all right. We have done this before. Ex-wife. No, I'm confident I can accomplish this. Ryan. You got it. Ex-wife and my obsessive-compulsive personality. It's taking all in me not to compile a list of things to do before our excursion. LOL. I generally hide my weaknesses, but you can see and hear about them all. Lol. You poor thing. You must believe I am neurotic, Ryan. I enjoy seeing this side of you. I don't think you're neurotic, but your paranoia, preparation and excitement make me happy that I can still excite you like way. Ex-wife. For your sake, I will let you take credit for the most of that. Then I too am paranoid for no apparent cause. But you've certainly taken it to a new level. Update 6. This week, a year ago, I was sitting around trying to absorb my ex-wife informing me about her ex, Ryan, approaching her with the idea of creating a book based on their prior work together. It was an obvious front to advance their ongoing affair, and I was so naive not to recognize it. Anyway, I confronted her and pushed her out, and she went to live with her parents, bringing her stepdaughter along. I kept in touch with my stepdaughter for a long time and continue to make time for her, but she has had it worse than anyone else. I suppose I'll offer an update on it first. My stepdaughter was effectively taken by her biological father shortly after my previous update. I've stated it before, but her father is not from my country, and his citizenship is in the country from which he came. Every few years he would take his daughter to his native country to see his relatives, but this time he refused to send her back. His stated reason was that our mutual ex-wife was poison and he wanted his kid away from her. In the end, he shot himself in the foot on that front since 2 months later, he surrendered to pressure from his own family and returned her and is not returning because he will almost certainly be arrested if he returns to the United States. So he removed himself as a positive influence in her life, leaving her in the hands of someone we both consider poison. My ex's situation did not improve from there. She began dating a new man shortly after her divorce was finalized, but before her ex-husband fled with their child. I was ignorant of this until my former in-laws phoned me to inform me that she had been hospitalized. She and Ryan, her affair partner, had the same number of guests, resumed sleeping together, then, according to former Mill, broke up with him again to pursue a new relationship. Ryan drove her to a Motel 6, where he told her he was sick of being treated the way he was. When she attempted to walk back to her car, he snapped, lifted her over his head and threw her down on the concrete parking lot. He attacked and drove away a good Samaritan before stepping on one of her hands and choking her so severely that she had dark purple bruises and a damaged vertebrae in her neck. Thankfully, he's now in jail and faces a bunch of assault charges, possibly including attempted murder, although I haven't followed up on the legal elements of any of it. And she is in physical treatment and recovering from the incident, where she was also concussed and is often fuzzy. Regardless of what she did to me, seeing her in this situation crushes my heart. My stepdaughter spends a lot of time with me these days, as I attempt to do everything I can to help the situation. She is naturally not in the best of moods, but spending time with my kid, his mother and me, at least provides her a good foundation to stand on. That leaves my first wife, my son's mother. Many people have expressed their want to see us reunite. In many ways, we have. Neither of us is forcing the other back into a relationship, but we have talked about our past. The infidelity that led to our separation and the fact that I have forgiven her. We are not formally back together, but we frequently spend the night at one another's homes. And it's been 4 days since we slept in different houses. We sleep apart, which I'm sure my son finds confusing, but we've been intimate on a regular basis for over a month. It's going quite smoothly. Nobody is pressing for anything more than what we have, and it appears to be working for the time being. I could go on for many more paragraphs, but I believe I'll end this update and address questions as they arise. My girlfriend accused me of emotional abuse, got engaged to another man while living with me, then I evicted her and reported her for theft within 2 hours. She made the announcement, "I'm engaged to someone else, we've been seeing each other for months." While she was still living in my house, I exclaimed, "Congratulations to you both." After that, I had her removed out of the house by the police that evening, and I replaced every lock and security code. It was while I was eating supper that I was informed of the announcement. I am a male who is 40 years old. The woman who was engaged to her approached her and demanded that she be permitted to see her once more. My girlfriend Rachel, who is 34 years old, and I had been living together in my house for the past 3 years. Rachel is my girlfriend. For 4 years we had been together. After preparing the pasta, she opened the bottle of wine, and she arranged the table in a style that showcased her elegance. On the other hand, I was under the assumption that she had been promoted or given some other kind of recognition. Instead, she put her hand on the table while wearing a diamond ring that I had never seen before. I was really taken aback by her gesture. She continued, "I have something to tell you," while wearing a real smile on her face. "I have something to report to you. My engagement to Ethan has been announced. In spite of the fact that we had been seeing each other for a considerable amount of time, he made the proposal yesterday." When she was looking at the ring, I put down my fork and gave her my undivided attention with my entire concentration. "Due to the fact that you are currently engaged to another person, you are currently residing at my house. In point of fact. Isn't it fascinating to think about? I was the first person I wanted to know about it, and you were the first." The audacity was so stunning that it had the effect of making me laugh out loud. "Rachel, do you really believe that you are on the verge of having a mental breakdown? What exactly is it?" "No. I am completely head over heels in love. He is very remarkable, Ethan. This man possesses everything that I have ever sought. Do you genuinely mean to relay this information to me? What exactly is the reason for that?" It was obvious that she was confused. Simply because we live together in the same house. Despite the fact that it is abundantly clear that things will shift in the near future, I was under the impression that we could devise a strategy for the transition. It is possible that I will be allowed to remain here for an additional month or two while Brad and I search for a new place to call home. As soon as I was able to stand up, I went to the cabinet, poured myself a glass of scotch, took a sip, and then I turned my attention back to her. "Thank you so much for your congratulations, each of you. Is that a fact? It is very much appreciated. My expectation was that you wouldn't be unhappy about this. It is recommended that you pack your possessions, Rachel." "What exactly is it?" "Organize your own possessions. 2 hours have been allotted to you." Her expression changed somewhat. "Was it even possible for you to be serious?" "Yes. This is my house. On the contrary, you were a resident of this location. Is to speak in the past tense. It is now ended because you have just announced that you are dating another man. The relationship is over. There is a departure scheduled for tonight. It is against the law to do it. Currently, I am a tenant. It is necessary for you to provide me with a 30-day notice period. Without a doubt, you are not a tenant. A guest room is located here. The whole amount of rent was never paid. I never signed anything. Not even a single piece of legislation. I never signed anything. Due to the fact that you are my ex-girlfriend, I would want to urge that you leave my property. This is a sort of emotional abuse that can occur. I have no other choice except to leave the house because you are forcing me to do so. Put in the number for Ethan. There is a good chance that your fiancé has a soft spot in her heart for you." She pulled out her phone and started recording the conversation that was taking place. To put it another way, this constitutes harassment. I am making a note of this in my journal. Simultaneously, I removed my phone from its location. You made a call to 911. I need aid in removing someone from my estate, and the answer is yes, I do require assistance. My ex-girlfriend has recently informed me that she would not be leaving, despite the fact that she is currently engaged to another man. Actually, I am the owner of the house. Absolutely not. She is not obligated in any way by any lease or deed. Regarding you, I am thankful. When Rachel looked at me, her jaw dropped. I see that you have called the cops. 2 hours have been allotted to you. Make sure it is up to date. A mere 20 minutes after the initial incident, the police arrived at the location. Additionally, there are 2 officers who are very capable. Throughout the course of my explanation, I provided them with both my identification and my deed cards. They looked at Rachel with a look of astonishment that was clearly visible to everyone around them. Are you sure that you just made the statement that you are engaged to another man while you are residing in this location, ma'am? In no way does this violate the law. Despite the fact that I have lived in this location for a considerable amount of time, I will not agree with your request if you are not a legal tenant and the homeowner wants you to go. I am the owner of the rights. What kind of a lease agreement do you have in your possession? Although this is not the case, do you receive mail at this location? In point of fact, this does not constitute tenancy because there are no additional factors to take into consideration. When it comes to your rent, do you make payments? I am a participant in it. Utilizing my banking application was something I did. The officer, I would appreciate it if you could locate my mortgage payments, which have been deducted from my account. A set of utilities that are made in my name and that I pay for in full. At no point in time has she received even a single dollar in payment. The younger officer raised his eyes to Rachel and looked at her. There has been a public announcement that you are going to marry another person, ma'am. What is it about this location that makes you desire to stay here? I need some time to myself so that I can think things out. A little nod was given by the officer with more seniority. I strongly advise you to pack what you can tonight and depart on your own volition, ma'am, given the circumstances that have arisen. It is my recommendation that you leave on your own volition, despite the fact that she might have a claim to residency given the circumstances. In the event that this is not resolved, it will develop into a legal difficulty. All of a sudden, Rachel started crying up. These are tears of irritation, not tears of sadness. It is not even close to being fair. The younger cop told the senior officer that you have informed this man that you are engaged to someone else. The older officer was surprised to hear this. So, what were you looking forward to? During the process of packing, she communicated with Ethan. One could hear her shrieking coming from the direction of the bedroom. It would appear that Ethan was unable to bring her over tonight due to the fact that he shared a flat with 3 other people. During the time that she was packing 2 suitcases and 4 garbage bags full of items, she was live streaming on Instagram. Additionally, she was relating how I was going to expel her from the house due to the fact that she had moved in with someone else. The moment she was about to go, she turned around to face me. I will come back in order to reclaim the belongings that are still in my possession. When would you kindly send me an SMS message? The driveway is where they will be waiting for me to arrive. This is a choice that you are going to come to deeply regret, Ryan. The fact that you announced your engagement over pasta is something you are going to regret, but probably not as much as you are going to regret the fact that you did it. Before taking action, they waited until she had removed herself from the situation by driving away in the vehicle that I had been allowing her to use. I'll elaborate on that in a moment. Following that, the more experienced one turned their focus to me and suggested that you change your locks tonight and make some considerations about acquiring some cameras. A locksmith has already been scheduled to arrive at the location. A person who is extremely perceptive. With warmest wishes. The current update is the second one. When I woke up the following day, I found that I had a total of 72 text messages, 35 missed calls, and 15 Instagram notifications waiting for me. Ethan, who was engaged to be married, had written a message to his brother that stated, "Bro, that was cold. She needed more time to move out properly. Not cool." Upon receiving a phone call from Rachel's mother at 7 in the morning, I responded by stating, "Bro, you proposed to my girlfriend while she was living in my house. That is not cool. What exactly is this, Ryan? It was brought to my attention that you had evicted Ronnie from the residence." "Hello and good morning, Susan. It is possible that she brought up the engagement scenario. Is that the case? Ethan is becoming engaged to her at this time. The couple has been together for a considerable amount of time now. Let there be a lengthy pause. According to her, the two of you were virtually living together in the same house. Do you think that is comparable to what she discussed with Ethan? It would be helpful if you could call me back. It was never something that she did." Ethan showed over at my door at approximately noon and greeted me. The man in the bun was most likely a Prius and was in his mid-30s according to his appearance. It is necessary for us to have a discussion. That is not something that we do. You were a traumatic experience for Rachel. Your fiancé had the pleasure of announcing your engagement to me when we were having dinner in my house, which is where she was living at the time. There is no rent. According to what she said, you were aware of us. Honestly, I couldn't help but laugh. The fact that I was aware that she was cheating was communicated to you. Not in the least bit dishonest, was it? The two of you had reached the point where it was pretty much over. At this point, I am the only person who is aware of it. As you can see, she is in desperate need of purchasing her furnishings. Her entire collection of furniture, including the bedroom set and the items for the living area, was acquired by me. I was the one who made the purchase. I myself am in possession of it. Her possessions include a laptop that is 3 years old, a few items of clothing and makeup, all of which she possesses. My money was used by her to decorate this property, and she did so with it. Ethan's face became more red as he continued to speak. Her sister is currently the one who is hosting her at the time. It is impossible for you to comprehend how humiliating this circumstance is for her. What about her? The fact that she was going to marry another man while she was still living with me was brought to light. What actions could you have taken if you had given her more time to process the information? My guest room is the perfect location for your wedding to be arranged. All of things are going to be acquired for her by us. And everything in between. Try your hand at it. Help me to have a better day, please. A man stormed off in a rage. 3 additional cameras were installed at the area by me. The current update is the 3rd one. A 3rd day for us. One of the options that Rachel considered was the nuclear option. Someone wrote on social media that I was an aggressive ex-boyfriend who kicked her out of the house because she fell in love with someone who actually cared for her. This comment was made in reference to the fact that she had moved out of the house. She said that I had been exploitative and controlling, and that she had been attempting to leave for a number of months, but I had refused to let her go. She also claimed that I had been manipulative and dominant. I was in possession of receipts, which was the issue. These receipts in their entirety. The posting of one of my comments occurred. Narrative that is interesting. The reality is as described here. Throughout the time that she was staying in my house without paying rent, she made the news that she was engaged to another man. She never paid a single bill throughout that time. Additionally, the following are the messages that she wrote to me the week before, in which she showed her love for me. Continued screenshot subsequent to the preceding screenshot. 2 weeks ago she came to me with a request for financial assistance in order to pay off her student loans. The I love you text message was sent by her 4 days before the news was made. She used my credit card to pay for a day at the spa with Ethan. I was surprised by her decision. With the benefit of hindsight, I am now aware that her acquaintance started making comments approximately 1 month ago. Let me get this straight. You were engaged when you were living there, right? As a girl you mentioned that the two of you were separate from one another. Here we have a total and utter mess on our hands. Following that, her sister Laura did leave a voicemail for her to listen to. Regarding Ronnie, I am sad to say that I am sorry, Ryan. The fact that she was still living with you was something that had not occurred to me. While she has been bringing Ethan around for a number of months, she has been asserting that the two of you are finished moving forward. Angry is the mother's stance. It would be possible for me to retrieve her items if you could simply put them outside for me to retrieve. The entire thing is packed up. Attend whenever it is most convenient for you to do so. On the other hand, however, the wonderful portion is about to start. Do you recall telling me about the car that you had owned? The current update is the 4th one. The situation with the car is as described above. The vehicle that Rachel was driving was the one that I owned, in my name, and the debt has been made up in full. Despite the fact that I merely granted her permission to use it, it seems that she had been asserting to Ethan that it was her own property. Now we are on the 4th day. Because of that, I filed a report of theft. She was present at the police station when she received her call. They found out that the vehicle had been reported stolen when they pulled her over, and they discovered this information. Mostly due to the fact that she was unable to provide evidence that she owned the property. Ryan, I don't know what the hell is going on. Pleased to meet you, Rachel. How far along are you in your life? I take it you are claiming that the vehicle was taken. You no longer reside in this location and you stole my vehicle without my permission. To put it another way, you have moved out of this location. Not at all. That is fraud. During the time when you were my girlfriend, you provided me privileges to operate the vehicle. At this time, you are the focus of Ethan's attention. This is an absolutely absurd proposition. At the moment I am located at the police station. Taking things into consideration, I will come and get my car. It is possible for Ethan to pick you up. Currently he is employed to work. Uber is a real company. That is you, the devil. A person who is realistic is me. You had a strong urge to start a romantic relationship with another individual. You are very much appreciated. When it comes to you, he is the one who is responsible. When I came home, I went to get my car. Due to the fact that she needed to get to her sister's place, she had to take an Uber. $80 was the amount that she incurred, as stated in her angry text. A response was not provided by me. The 5th update is now available. It was on day 6 that the escalation took place. During the evening, at 9 o'clock, Ethan and 3 of his pals showed up at my place of living. You should relax your guard. All of Rachel's possessions are going to be acquired by us. Another call came in to 911 from me. There is a group of 4 males coming to my house with the intention of breaking in. His fists were pounding on the door as he attempted to open it. We are conscious of the fact that you are here. I placed the phone on speaker since it was essential for dispatch to hear what I had to say. Would it be possible for you to depart my property? It is a violation of someone else's property that you are doing. It is hers to keep 50% of these goods. There is nothing that she owns. Every single one of them has a receipt in my hands. Attempts were made to take a circuitous route backwards. The motion lights and cameras were able to record every single moment of the event. In point of fact, one of his companions made an attempt to jimmy the door while it was sliding open and closed. The arrival of the cops was prompt. 4 individuals who are attempting to break into a property are given priority among the other individuals. Ethan immediately assumed the position of the victim in the situation. This individual vandalized the items that belonged to my fiancée and stole them. Simply put, we are making an effort to accomplish something for her. My presentation of the surveillance film to the police was successful. A total of 4 individuals were attempting to break into the building. I instructed that they be taken into custody. Ethan signaled the beginning of the attempt to break into the structure and enter it by stating, "Now wait. Trespassing is a lawful offense. If I were to register a complaint, I would do so." It was determined that the companion who attempted to use the sliding door should be placed in handcuffs. Warnings and citations for trespassing were issued to Ethan and the other 2 individuals who invaded the property. They would be taken into custody without delay in the event that they returned as planned. While they were loading his friend into the patrol car, Ethan was ranting about attorneys and lawsuits. Their conversation was taking place at the same time. I looked him in the eye and kept my gaze fixed on him. During the 3 years that she was unfaithful to you, your fiancé remained in this house without making any payments toward payment of rent. If she does not pay her rent on time, I have the ability to initiate a lawsuit against her. Would you like to take part in the game that is within the law? More money is in my possession at the moment. An update number 6. The get-together of the family members. Day 10. And someone named Susan called me on the phone. Would it be possible for us to have a face-to-face talk, Ryan? Mother of Rachel. At a coffee shop we decided to get together. Susan gave off the impression of being worn out. The truth is something that I have to be aware of. And everything in between. To her, I gave a demonstration of everything. On the basis of my bank statements, I can demonstrate that I have paid for everything. Rachel communicated with me via text message just a few days prior to our scheduled meeting to discuss our future plans. The receipt for the dinner that she had the night before she made the news that she was going to enter into a marriage relationship. It was her demand that we go to a location that was reasonably priced that we went to. Now that I think about it, I can see why. During the festivities, she was spending money that I had given her. The expression that Susan was wearing became increasingly melancholy as time went on. She shared with us that the 2 of you had been spending 36 months away from one another. When it came down to it, you were living together as roommates. As a result of the fact that she was reluctant to leave because she believed that you were unstable. A project manager is the role that I play at the engineering company where I am employed. At my house, I am by myself. I have not even once raised my voice in her direction. I have not even once. Indeed, such is the case. Indeed, such is the case. This personality trait has always been a part of her. In collaboration with her father, we were able to make it happen. In her earlier years she had a romantic relationship with 2 boys at the same time and she was successful in persuading both of them that the other was merely a friend. During that period of time, we should have taken some kind of action for ourselves. Susan has reached the age of 34. Indeed, such is the case. Lately, Ethan has begun accompanying his family to dinners that they frequent. In response, she stated, "You were never available. You were always working." As a result of our investigation, we have determined that you are the origin of the problem. I was able to provide for her way of life due to the fact that I was working. At the same time, Susan used her hand to transfer an envelope across the table. It comes to a total of $6,000. Although it is not much in comparison to what she took away from you, it is something nonetheless. I am sorry, Sue, but I am unable to do whatever you want with it. At this time, I would like to extend my apologies on behalf of both me and her father. We were the ones that brought this up. There must be a component of it that belongs to us. I would want to express my appreciation to you for taking an envelope. The fact that Ethan is already having second thoughts is something that you should be aware of. As a result of her staying with Laura and continually asking financial aid from him, he is witnessing what you have been through on a daily basis. My issue is no longer a concern at this time. No. It is not the situation at all. Dear Ryan, I sincerely apologize. It was only fair that you receive better. An update number 7. The implosion was in its third week at the time. A text message was provided to me by Laura, who is Rachel's sister. Would you be able to talk to me if I asked? We were the recipients of a phone call. However, Ronnie was caught off guard by the call. I am going utterly mad as a result of it. At this point, she will be unable to secure a job. The house is not going to benefit from it in any way. Her entire day is spent on Instagram, where she opens up about her feelings of anxiety and talks about the things she is doing to get ready for her wedding. In the past, Ethan has only made 2 trips to the location. With each passing day, he is more and more perplexed by the fact that she continues to need financial assistance from him. I assure you that this is not my concern. Indeed, such is the case. Just now, Just how did you manage to stay doing it for such a significant amount of time? In any case, I was under the impression that I loved her. It is love that causes you to be foolish. According to the reports that have been flying about, the 2 of you were involved in an open relationship. What exactly is it? Indeed, such is the case. That throughout the entire time, you were aware of Ethan and were comfortable with the situation up until the moment where you started feeling envious of him. Exactly. This is a totally new one. Ryan, are you aware of any contributions that she may have made in the past? What exactly is there to be found? I would occasionally buy groceries for her, and she would use those groceries to prepare dinner for me. I will grant her a 30-day grace period, after which she will be expelled from the premises. It is not possible for me to finish this work. I hope that everything works out for you. Another phone call came from Laura after a period of 2 weeks had passed. She is adamant about remaining. She asserts that I am unable to kick her out of the house. Those are her relatives. It is a sound that is well known. Sadly, Ethan has left her behind. The coffee I am drinking is on the edge of escaping my mouth. What exactly is it? Indeed, such is the case. She persisted in her insistence that he immediately pay all of the bills. The fact that he insisted that she look for work infuriated her. Afterwards, she came to the realization that his job as a marketing consultant was actually a part-time work at the business that his father owned. Over the course of his life, he has been dishonest about his fortune. It is a well-known fact that they have a wonderful compatibility with one another. Nevertheless, neither of them actually possesses any resources that can be classified as financial. What a wonderful thing karma is. Because you have caused her mental anguish and because you have evicted her without good cause, she is threatening to bring a lawsuit against you. It is not impossible for her to perform the task. A wonderful attorney is someone I am fortunate enough to have. The 9th update is now available. The legal threat has now been in effect for the 5th week. There were papers that were brought to my attention. An ambulance chaser was located by Rachel, and she demanded that I restore her belongings and pay her $50,000 for the emotional suffering and unlawful eviction she experienced. This was not a genuine lawsuit. Rather, it was a demand that I stop doing what I was doing and bring her belongings back to her. My attorney has already left. It is true that I departed. She made the news that she was engaged to another man while she was living with you without having to pay rent, and she is now demanding money from you. The statement is made in that manner. Tell me to take care of things for you. The response he gave was really astounding. She submitted a document to the court that was 17 pages long and contained a lengthy discussion of emotional terrorism and love discrimination. Rachel's attorney immediately dropped her after she received 3 pages of legal paperwork that basically said, "Lol, no. Countersuit incoming for 3 years of back rent at market rate, $50,000. Rachel's attempt to represent herself included submitting a document that was 17 pages long. It was rejected by the judge in a stretch of time that was less than 5 minutes. One of the more positive aspects, on the other hand, was that she was required to include her address in the court records. She had moved in with Ethan after he had taken her back, and she had started living with him. Now the public had access to the information regarding the location of his roommate. The card has been updated for the 8th and final time. It is the 7th week of the month. The phone rang, and it was Ethan. "You are going to be of great aid to me." That is something that is quite humorous. "I implore you, she will not leave without you." No, she is not a signatory to our lease, but she has no intention of leaving. She is threatening to accuse me of assaulting her whenever we make an effort to coerce her into leaving, and she is doing this every time. Furthermore, do you require my assistance? To what end? Can you believe that you were able to free her in just one night? If this is the case, then you should immediately notify the authorities and have security footage available for reference. Does she have the ability to communicate with you? Could you kindly tell her to leave? Where are you, Brad? You made a marriage proposal to the girlfriend of another man while she was living with him. Where are you? Your handiwork was used to construct this bed. The fact was unknown to me. It was during the period that she was still living with me that she informed you that the two of you were finished, and you believed her. What a complete and utter idiot I am. In point of fact. Without a doubt you are. I beseech you to kindly comply with my request. Please allow me to offer you some free advice, Brad. Cameras should be installed at this point. Make sure that you document everything. You ought to create a recording of her making false accusations, and then you ought to call the police on your own. The winner is often the first person to call in the majority of cases. Exactly, that is it. Exactly, that is it. You ought to additionally take into consideration the possibility of not proposing to women who are currently living with other males. And then he hung up the phone. The last update is presented here. 40 months have passed up to this point. Everyone that was there ended up in this particular area. Rachel was the one who ultimately made the decision to move back in with her parents when Ethan's roommates threatened to take legal action against her. She continues to publish about her journey of self-discovery and how she is a survivor of narcissistic abuse throughout her life, despite the fact that she is 34 years old. As of right now, she is employed at a clothing business on a part-time basis. She is also engaged to a man who she met online and who lives in a distant state. This is in addition to the fact that she is already engaged previously. The two of them had never actually been face-to-face with one another. Additionally, he moved back in with his grandmother and father. After everything was said and done, his roommates made the decision to exclude him from their home because he was the one who brought the drama into their household. On the other hand, friends of common acquaintances claim that he posts motivational words on Instagram related to the significance of gaining wisdom from one's own failures. In addition to a letter declaring that they are actively engaged in therapy to address enabling behaviors, the Christmas card that I received from Susan and Robert's parents included an additional check for the amount of $2,500. Apparently, they have established a time limit for Rachel to vacate the residence by which she must go. Yes, Laura, it is true. We ended up becoming friends in the end. There are times when she will send me brief updates through the medium of text message. In addition to that, she is currently attending treatment sessions. It dawned on her that the inner workings of her family had a big bearing on the interactions she had with other people. I have no problem with it, and the house is really peaceful right now. Established a romantic engagement with a new individual. In addition to being the owner of her own home and vehicle, Rebecca is also the owner of her own property. Has a strong aversion to splitting each and every cash check. In a relationship with someone who makes an equal contribution to the entire, it is a strangely normal sensation to be in that connection. I was fortunate enough to become acquainted with one of Ethan's former roommates at a pub, which was the most enjoyable aspect of the experience. He was kind enough to share with me the complete story of how they spent their last days together. According to the timeline, it would appear that Rachel was successful in convincing Ethan to propose to her by telling him that she was with his kid while she was living with me. However, the timeline was entirely nonsensical. During the time that she was having sexual intercourse with me, she would have been carrying a child. After coming to the conclusion that she had been lying about the pregnancy, he made an effort to put an end to the relationship. By that time, she had threatened to file a claim of assault against the other person. She was not informed by the roommates that they had put cameras in the parts of the apartment that were shared by all of the residents. The fact that she stated that she had never been pregnant and that she was joking about how guys are so easy to deceive was caught on film. She also admitted that she had never been pregnant. It was Ethan who received the tape from them. He turned it over to the authorities, and they walked her out of the building before she was arrested. She made an effort to assert that they had illegally recorded her by using a recording device. It has been brought to light that shared dwellings and communal locations do not have the responsibility of providing adequate privacy for their residents. When it does arrive, karma is thorough in its implementation, yet there are times when it takes a while to finally arrive. When we look back, we see that the warning signs were scattered all over the place. For the past 2 years, she had not been able to maintain constant employment. Possessed a valid excuse in every instance. There was never a time when she did not face a crisis that prevented her from making a contribution. There were never any concrete plans, but there were always very ambitious ambitions. In truth, the dinner that was supposed to be used to announce the news turned out to be a gift. In the event that she had been more astute about it and had kept me waiting for a longer period of time, I might have wasted more years than I would have otherwise. She, on the other hand, became so accustomed to the circumstance that she started to believe that she could have her cake and eat it too. I was under the notion that I would give her permission to stay with me while she was in the process of trying to make plans to marry another man. The extent of the claim was of staggering proportions. There is a misconception that is even more ludicrous. On the other hand, the most efficient method of revenge is to lead a happiness-filled life. The cleanliness of my home is impeccable. The amount that I spend has gone down. Now, I do not have any stress. When I wake up, I am in my own bed, in my own house, and I do not have to deal with the drama that is generated by other people. Additionally, I am not required to deal with others. Regarding Rachel, on the other hand, she is currently the issue that affects everyone else. Only one at a time, please. My girlfriend said, "My ex needs me," and spent the night with him on our anniversary. She didn't know she had lost the $10,000 engagement ring. Now, she begs, "How are you?" Viewers, before we move on to the video, I would want to make a request of you. If you are interested in viewing other information similar to this, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. I am grateful to you. No one was able to hear my voice. The vase that she had purchased should not have been tossed into the loom against the wall, as I should have known better. I did not make the request to see her phone, she made the request. At the point where one has reached a certain level of comprehension, rage does not appear to be contributing to anything. It was 7:30 inches the morning. There is a day on Saturday. Charlotte, who had been my girlfriend for the past 4 years, had just walked in through the front door of the house at that precise time. It seemed as though she was in a state of disorder, but in reality, she was not. Recently, I came to the conclusion of spending the night at a hospital, where I was able to save the life of another individual, an absolute disaster. The fact that I had been awake till 4:30 inches the morning seemed to be the situation, damaged by getting together over unpleasant situations while drinking inexpensive wine. Her keys were accidentally dropped on the console table, which she had been using. The boom resonated throughout the apartment, which was otherwise silent, like a shot from a gun. I was sitting on the couch wearing the same clothes that I had worn the night before, which comprised of a tidy button-down shirt and jeans. I was wearing the same clothes since the previous evening. There was no sleep that I had obtained. She made the statement, "Oh, you're awake," as she took off her boots and walked away from her feet. She pretended to have a headache by stroking her temples in an effort to elicit compassion from the audience. She walked alongside me on her way to the kitchen, anticipating that I would follow her like a dog and that I would query as to whether or not she was okay. "God, what a nightmare. I am exhausted," she remarked as she walked by me. "I am extremely exhausted." When I did not move, she halted what she was doing and spun around to the opposite direction. The atmosphere underwent a shift. She was able to observe the garments. As she stood behind me, she took notice of the candles that were sitting on the dining table but were not lit. A bottle of vintage Cabernet that had not been opened was available for purchase, and the price was $150. It was positioned next to 2 glasses that were completely watertight and devoid of any liquid. At the same time that she groaned, she spoke the words, "Ethan, please," in a tone that was dripping with anticipation and displeasure. "Don't do this. Don't start." My inquiry was, "Start what?" And the tone of my voice was disturbingly emotionless. From beginning to end. The silent treatment thing. Liam was in a really bad place. Okay? He was spiraling. He called me in a panic. If I hadn't gone over there, I don't know what he would have done. Liam, the broken bird, who was her ex-boyfriend, was the culprit. For a period of 2 years prior to my arrival, she had a relationship with him that was fraught with issues. The person who, when they were 24 years old, had a passion for being a DJ and who, now that they are 29 years old, continues to be a DJ. I had been the rock, the stable engineer, who was responsible for paying the bills, planning the excursions, and replacing the sinks that were leaking throughout the course of 4 years. I had been in charge of every single one of these things. Liam, the artist who worked in a chaotic manner, and only called when he was either broke, high, or lonely, was the source of the problem. It was our 3rd anniversary, Charlotte, I said to her. It was amazing. We had reservations at El Bernardine. I booked that table 3 months ago. Her eyes were looking away from her. To be more precise, they were rolled. I know, and I feel bad about the dinner. I do, but this was a life or death situation, Ethan. He was talking about ending it. What kind of person would I be if I ignored that because of a dinner reservation? That turned out to be the situation. It is the defining moment. Due to the fact that I was concerned about our accomplishment, she was making an effort to portray me as the antagonist. Therefore, I responded by asking, "So, he was suicidal?" "Yes." "He was hysterical. Did you call 911? Something came to a halt in her. "What? If he was an immediate threat to himself, you should have called emergency services professionals." "Did you call them?" "No, Ethan. I didn't call the cops on him. He just needed someone to talk to. He needed to not be alone." I stood up and approached her in the direction that she was going. Because I was getting closer, I was able to pick up on the smell. It was not the antiseptic odor that one might expect in a crisis center or a hospital waiting room. The aroma was not that. It was a particular instance. Vape smoke that had been sitting about for a while. The sour taste of IPA that had been spilled. And behind all of that, there was the intense and pungent scent of Santal 33, which is Liam's signature fragrance smell. I stated to you, "You smell like a dive bar." And I meant it. She blushed. And her cheeks turned a deep scarlet color as a result of her regret. After he calmed down, we had a drink to settle his nerves. We fell asleep watching a movie on the couch. Nothing happened. "You missed our anniversary to get drunk with your ex-boyfriend because he was lonely." Her voice was piercing as she shouted out, "He needed me." And her voice was heard breaking. "God. You are so insecure. You can't handle that. I care about people. You would have understood if you actually trusted me, instead of being so jealous." Additionally, it was broken in that statement. "You would have understood if you trusted me." When I stared at her, I did not just stare at her. I looked directly at her. I could see the smear of eyeliner, that she had not removed from her face, that she had left behind. The defensiveness that she exhibited was something that I could see clearly. She did not show any signs of regret. It seems that she had the right to draw my attention to herself. She had the misconception that she was entitled to my stability throughout the period of time when she was attempting to satisfy her emotional needs as a result of the chaos that was her background. She had a strong urge to play the part of a nurse to a man who simply refused to grow up. In addition to that, she asked me to pay the rent for the apartment that she settled into when she arrived back at her house. There was not a single more word that I uttered. After turning around and passing past her, I went inside the bedroom despite the fact that I had just walked by her. Ethan, where are you going? Are you walking away from me?" she asked as she followed me and raised the level of her voice. "Are you walking away from me?" First, I pulled my baggage from the highest shelf in the closet. Then I hurled it right onto the bed. And finally, I proceeded to open it. Her laughter was harsh and outraged, and she cried, "Oh my God, you have got to be kidding me." Her tone of laughter was harsh and indignant overall. "You're packing because I helped a friend. You are being so dramatic right now." I had to walk in order to reach the dresser. I opened the drawer that contained the socks. "Ethan, stop it. Talk to me." I groped for something that was hidden in the back of the drawer, underneath the thick wool socks that I used when I went hiking. My fingertips lightly stroked the velvet, which was a cool and fluffy material. It was I who proceeded to remove the box. The package was quite small, and was completely navy blue in color. On the inside was a platinum band that included a solitaire diamond that weighed 2 carats that was set in platinum. For a period of 8 months, I had been setting aside money specifically for it. My journey of 2.5 hours was aimed at a particular jeweler, in order to achieve the desired level of perfection in the cut. On the previous evening, a proposal was scheduled to take place while dessert was being consumed. I turned around an entire degree. Charlotte was standing there with her hands on her hips, getting ready to launch into another diatribe about how I lacked empathy. The doorway to the bedroom was open, and she was standing there. When she was finished, she took a look at my hand. When her mouth opened, she was in the middle of a statement, but the sound was unable to continue because it died in her throat. Her eyes widened in both directions. Not only did her face become pale, but it also went gray due to the condition. It appeared as though she was limp, as her hands disappeared from her hips and fell to her sides. There was a sudden and terrible clarity that took the place of the arrogance that had been present. The box was the object of her attention. The suitcase was the next thing that she focused her attention on. When it was over, she shifted her attention to me. "Ethan," she whispered, referring to the name. A sound resembling choking was made as the word was released. "Is that were you?" I made the decision to not answer. I refrained from opening the box, in order to show her the ring that she had misplaced throughout the course of our conversation. She should not have been allowed to experience the brilliance, since it was not fair. I simply slipped the package away into my pocket, so that it would remain hidden. I turned around and went back to the bed, where I stuffed my laptop, my toiletries, and 3 days' worth of clothes onto the bed. I used a zipper to secure the bag's closure. No, 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 no. As soon as she walked into the room, she started speaking in a manner that was stuttering. My arm was grasped by her as she extended her hand to take it. "Ethan." "Wait. You were going to propose last night." Her grasp was successfully avoided by me. I started by grabbing the handle of my luggage the moment I opened it. "Ethan, please stop, let's talk about this." Because she was in a condition of anxiety at this point, she was obstructing the path leading to the entrance. Exactly at that time, tears started to rise up in my eyes. These tears are genuine this time around. Instead of being a result of deceit, tears are shed out of pain. The fact was unknown to me. In the event that I had been aware of what was going to take place, I would have never picked up the phone. In the case of Liam, I would have advised him to leave. For the purpose of making eye contact with her, I paused for a single second, which was precisely the right amount of time. I spoke to Charlotte in a low voice and said, "That is the problem. That is the problem." I also remarked, "You shouldn't have needed a ring to tell him that." My distance from her increased. In her attempt to reach the handle of the baggage, her fingernails made contact with the fabric, causing her to scratch it. However, I was successful in removing it from her possession. It was possible for me to hear her footsteps echoing loudly behind me as I made my way down the corridor. "You can't just leave. We live together. Ethan. I love you." I was the one who opened the door to the entrance. A guttural sound was left behind by her yelling, "Ethan." It is highly possible that the neighbors were roused from their sleep by this sound. After leaving the room, I made sure to carefully close the door behind me, and listened to the sound of the lock clicking as I did so. After descending the stairs, I got into my vehicle, and then got behind the wheel, and drove away from the area. In my absence, I was the one who activated the radio. I was entirely silent as I was driving, and I felt lighter than I have in years. I had not felt this way in years. An excellent illustration of modern types of cyberbullying was provided by the first 48 hours of the investigation. My place of employment was approximately 20 minutes away, and I had checked into a motel that was priced in the middle of the range, and was not particularly spectacular. The place was quiet, despite the fact that it was not particularly fancy. I was sitting on the stiff bed, and I was staring at my phone as it vibrated across the nightstand. It was getting closer and closer to the edge of the bed, as if it were a beetle that was trying to end its life. "It appears that you have missed 10 calls, Charlotte." A total of 12 text messages have been sent to Charlotte. The narrative followed a regular and almost clinical path of misery throughout its entirety. More particularly, the narrative depicted the grieving that a narcissist goes through when they lose their supply of narcissistic traits. During the first phase, you will engage in denial and bargaining. "I am trembling and having trouble breathing. You are terrified me. I am getting rid of everything that Liam has. I have blocked his number. Baby, is it feasible for you to pick me up? I am shivering. I am having problems breathing. It is possible for us to find a solution to this problem." Couples go through challenging moments. We do not throw away 4 years of our lives because of a single misunderstanding. I will illustrate. Just come home. The second stage is the fury phase. It is apparent that you have never loved me if you are able to walk away from me with such ease. You are acting in a very immature manner. After everything I have done for you, you are going to just ghost me? That is a very cowardly thing to do, Ethan. It would appear that the only thing you were looking for was an offense. The third phase is number 3, also known as the flying monkeys. In the afternoon of Sunday, the troops had already been dispatched to their respective locations. A woman named Maya, who was her best friend and believed herself to be an accomplished relationship specialist, blew up my phone. Maya was a woman who had cheated on 2 different husbands, and considered herself to be an expert in the field. I made the mistake of answering one of the calls that came in because I was curious about whether or not Charlotte was going to set fire to the apartment. I wanted to know so that I could make an informed decision. To my amazement, Maya exclaimed, "Ethan, you need to stop this performative cruelty. before I had even had a chance to say hello. Her tone was high and resonated in the receiver as she talked. "She is on the floor, Ethan." Her eyes were watering as she sat on the ground. It is not possible to simply dangle an engagement ring in front of her face, and then walk away from her. This is an example of psychological abuse. While I was sitting by the window of the motel, I found myself observing the slow-moving traffic that was traveling along the freeway. I felt a curious sense of alienation, as if I were watching a movie that was not based on my real life. I didn't dangle it. I answered in a calm and collected manner. "I packed it. I am the rightful owner of it. Just like the money that she would require for the rent the following month." Maya growled at him. "You are heartless." And then she went on to say, "She made a mistake." Maya. She was making an attempt to be a very kind buddy. I stood up, keeping my tone calm, and they said, "She came home smelling like his cologne and stale beer. It was not possible for her to save anyone's life. She went out on a courtship. Make sure Charlotte is aware that she has until the end of the month to work out the lease information. For the time being, I will pay my half. When it is over, she will be on her own." Following the moment that I hung up the phone, I blocked Maya's number. After that, I turned off Charlotte's sisters. After that, I turned off the notifications for the people that we have in common. I appeared to be a ghost when I went to work on Monday. Excel spreadsheets and structural loads were the sole subjects of my attention. It was a meditative experience. When you are dealing with the aftermath of a betrayal, there is something about mathematics that is quite calming. Math does not tell lies. Due to the fact that it is always confused, the number 2 plus 2 never gets in touch with its ex at midnight. Math is not a technique that can be used to gaslight someone. By Wednesday, it seemed as though Charlotte had been greatly affected by the silence that emerged from my end. It was at this moment that the writing ceased being angry, and began to become pathetic. Charlotte's behavior had changed significantly. "I yearn for you. The flat is quite peaceful and quiet. Your gray hoodie was located by me. It smells exactly like you. My bed is in it right now." I failed to provide a response. I did not have the desire to do so. I will never forget the look on her face when she first saw the ring box. It seared itself into my retina. I had no idea that I required the closure that it provided. The fact that she comprehended the gravity of her loss was demonstrated by this. Words would only serve to water down that. After approximately 2.5 weeks had passed, I was obligated to pay a visit to the apartment in order to reclaim the items that I still possessed. On a Tuesday morning, when I was aware that she had a meeting with the team, I planned it out. The apartment was a complete and utter mess. It appeared to be a fraternity home. The coffee table was covered with takeout containers, and there was a heap of washing on the sofa. This was the outward embodiment of the mental state that she was experiencing. Along with the last articles of clothing, I packed my books and my espresso machine. I was in the process of loading the last box into my vehicle when my neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, who was walking her pug, came across me. Mrs. Johnson was the neighborhood's preferred monitoring system. I was in the midst of packing my books. She called out to him, "Ethan," as she approached him and said, "I haven't seen you in a while. Will there be no problems at all?" Most recently, Charlotte has been surrounded by a lot of company. "Mrs. Johnson, I have moved out," I said after a brief pause. It was a breakup. Her appearance was odd, and I suspected that the young man with the loud muffler was the one who was responsible for it. "Your parking spot has been occupied by him. There is music playing at all hours. It was my intention to lodge a complaint with the Strata, but I didn't want to make things difficult for you. Liam." Despite the fact that it had only been a month since the parasite had been given to the new host, it had already attached itself to the host. This is indeed the case. Suddenly, I was overcome with a wave of nausea, and as soon as it passed, I felt a sense of relief. It was no longer a problem for me. On the other hand, I smiled and said, "I'm off the lease as of the 1st. Feel free to complain, Mrs. Johnson," I said. "After all, it is no longer my place." Through the course of the coming few months, I was informed of the remaining aspects of the story through the grapevine. It is not a secret to you. You make an attempt to sever links, but friends who are also, you become drunk, and discuss the situation. It would appear that after I had left the picture, Charlotte made an effort to rely on Liam for the emotional and financial security that I had provided through my presence. This happened after I had left the picture. She believed that my presence had hampered their connection, and that now that I was there, they might finally flourish as a result of my presence. He was expected to take the lead. He had no interest in having a girlfriend. He desired to have a supporter. He did not wish to pay 50% of the rent. He was seeking for a room to sleep in. It was as if a freight train had smacked her with the reality check. Liam had no interest in having a girlfriend. He borrowed $2,500 from her in order to buy new DJ equipment. And it took him only 1.5 months to do it. He began calling his artsy friends to the flat, which served as our sanctuary. And he transformed it into a house that was a complete disaster. When she asked him to contribute or clean up, he answered to her with the exact same lines that he had used to her when he had treated me. He made the place into a terrible house. I am unable to express my creative side. You have an excessively rigid attitude. Try to stop behaving like my mother. Due to the fact that it was so rich, the irony might have been responsible for causing gout. At the conclusion of the 4th month, the final nail in the coffin was placed. At the same time that I went out for drinks with a friend of mine named Jake, who continued to follow Charlotte on Instagram. I was also present. While he was sitting at the table, Jake murmured, "Dude." And then he slipped his phone across the table and said, "Look at this." It was a narrative that Charlotte had posted on her website. It was entirely composed of text, with a black background, and a light white typeface. It was a global indication that a meltdown is going to take place. The fact that you may ruin the best thing that has ever happened to you for someone who treats you like an option is a funny thing to think about. The lesson that was learned. I am so sorry. She broke up with Liam. While I was taking a large drink of my beer, I asked the question. Jake grinned to himself. Better. And then said, Liam cheated on her with a promoter who was only 19 years old. It was in a club that they first met. Charlotte arrived at her house early and discovered them. It inspired me to laugh. An unexpected and piercing roar of laughter could be heard, and I had no control over where it was coming from. Jake stated with a certain degree of caution. She has been asking about you. She is aware that I will be seeing you tonight. She was curious as to whether or not you are seeing anyone. I was thinking about Sophia, the woman I had met a few weeks before at the rock climbing club where I was working out. She was a nurse who worked with children. And she was hilarious, forthright, and had her act together. We had gone on 3 dates together throughout our time together. There is no drama, and there are no former partners hiding in the shadows. The chemistry between them is clear and uncomplicated. Tell her that I'm doing great, I informed her of my situation. And tell her I sold the ring. Both of Jake's eyebrows rose in response to it. You got rid of it? It's true. This past week. So, what exactly did you do with the money? I finally got around to purchasing that vintage Ducati that I've been talking about for the past 5 years, I said as I motioned to the waitress for the check. I've been talking about it for like 5 years. Each and every time, Charlotte would insist that riding a motorbike was an unsafe activity, and she would not permit me to take possession of one. I got to my feet and groped for my jacket as soon as I could. I reflected to myself. It seems that she was the one who posed the greatest threat. Let me tell you something. If you have never rebuilt a life from the ground up, you should know that it is addictive. This first month is a living misery. Work is the second factor. At the third point, however, you become aware of the amount of dead weight that you were truly carrying. If you have never done this before, you know that it is addictive. In addition to the fact that I was no longer in Charlotte's presence, the anxiety that she masked as pleasure was no longer a component of my being. I was relieved of the unrelenting need to deal with her feelings, her dilemma, and her doubts. I felt emancipated. I threw myself into everything that I had previously put on hold. Not only did I work harder, but I worked smarter. As a result of my efforts, I was not only awarded a significant rise in income, but I was also promoted to the position of senior project manager. During the weekend travels that I went on the Ducati up the coast, I felt the wind ripping past me, which assisted me in cleaning up the remaining dust from the past. It was during these trips that I started to view Sophia in a more significant sense. The atmosphere was different, and there was silence. She informed me that despite the fact that Sophia had a challenging day at the hospital, she did not become hostile or disappear. I found out about this from her. We ordered Thai food in addition to watching bad science fiction films. It was just 2 grown-ups working together to build something real. There were no games, and there were no tests of my allegiance for me to take. While I was browsing the inventory on a Tuesday evening, I was at a high-end furniture store located in the downtown area. My condo, which I had acquired with my own money, and had equipped according to my own preferences, was in the process of being furnished with a new sofa, and I was in the process of purchasing it. The use of throw pillows in a beige color, and banners that read live, laugh, love are not permitted. When I became aware that eyes were on me, I was assessing the rigidity of a charcoal leather sofa on which I was seated. The sensation caused the hairs on the back of my neck to stand on edge. The ability to identify when you are being viewed is a fundamental instinct. I turned around an entire degree. It was observed that Charlotte was standing close to the entrance, and she appeared to be a specter of the person she had been in the past. Her appearance had diminished, and there is no other way to appropriately explain it. She was wearing vintage yoga pants and a hoodie that had a stain on it. Her hair was tied back into a twisted bun since she was in a hurry. She had aged 5 years in the preceding 6 months, and she given off the impression that she was fatigued. She was staring at me as if I were an apparition, despite the fact that she was holding a low-cost iced coffee in her hand. There was no wave of adrenaline that I experienced, and to put it another way, I was feeling bored. I did not freak out over it. The haughty strut that she used to have was no longer apparent in her gait, which was hesitant. She went over after a moment of doubt, and her walk was hesitant. "Ethan," she said. "Charlotte." I greeted her with a courteous nod. "How are you doing?" She appeared to be put off by my composure, as evident by the fact that she was blinking. When it came to indifference, she was at a loss for what to do because she anticipated both anger and something that could be described as desire. I was wearing a suited jacket and nice boots, and her eyes ran over my attire. It was the costly sofa that I was reclining on that attracted her interest. She lied and said, I'm okay. I was wearing a design jacket and good boots. You look really good. Are you content?" I said, "I am. And I meant it. I really am." She was seeking for an opportunity to make a move, as evidenced by the fact that she had her lips bitten and the gears were working behind her back. "The promotion was brought to my attention," she added. "Dave informed me of such a promotion." "You are very welcome. You always put in a lot of effort. I have always predicted that you would one day be in charge of that establishment. You actually said I work too much, and lack spontaneity." I made a kind of remark that was intended to be a correction. "But thank you," she jerked back in response to it. "Watch out, Ethan. Could we talk for just 5 minutes, please?" "Charlotte, I attempted to send you a text message, but I blocked you." "It is true. Certainly, you did, and I was deserving of it." I was in the middle of my personal space when she stepped closer to me. The aroma of stale coffee and the feeling of despair were extremely evident to me at that moment. "However, I will have to say this. I need you to be aware that I made a significant mistake for you. There was a mistake made by Liam. One of the most heinous errors ever made. The reason I checked my watch was not because I wanted to demonstrate my strength. Rather, it was because I had dinner reservations waiting for me." In response to the question, "I know," I said, I took note. "Ethan. He was a violent person. My feelings were exploited by him. He depleted my savings account. I am currently residing on Maya's couch because I was unable to pay the rent on our previous house on my own." While she continued to speak, she noticed that tears were beginning to form in her eyes. I made a stunning realization. I thought about you each and every time he treated me like a piece of dirt. When I was with you, I reflected on how secure I felt. The fact that you never caused me to feel anxious was a significant factor in my decision to consider you. At the same time that she extended her hand to me, her hand was still hovering close to my arm. "It's been a while, Ethan. I long for my truest companion. I am aware that I have deceived you, but people develop. I have matured. We are able to begin again cautiously. I am able to make amends to you." Having spent weeks rehearsing in the shower by herself, this was the moment that she finally reached the end of her journey. "This is the pitch." My sight was drawn to her hand. I then proceeded to gaze at her face. I recalled the anniversary of the event. I recalled her telling me that I was insecure for having limitations as she was standing in the hallway looking like him and smelling like him. I replied, "Charlotte," while keeping a steady tone in my voice, "do you remember what you said to me that morning when you came home on your own?" Bewildered was the expression on her face. I said a lot of things. You said you would have understood if you trusted me." Her expression was one of excitement, as she nodded her head and said, "Yes, and I know I was wrong to say that." I reacted with a no, which cut her off in the middle of her sentence. "You weren't wrong." Something came to a halt in her. "What is it?" "In response to your question, I stated, I was right. If I had trusted you, I would have been a fool. However, I put my faith in myself instead. And I was fully aware of the tasks that were required of me. In order to create some distance between us, I proceeded in the opposite direction. I. You are not someone I despise, Charlotte. When I think about you, I don't find myself despising you. But this is hardly a fresh start for us. In no way are we anything. You made the decision to live a life of disorder. And I made the decision to live a peaceful life. And I'm not going to give up my tranquility in order to mend your errors. The wrinkles appeared on her face. However, the ring. You have purchased a ring, Ethan. It was your intention to wed me. You can't just turn that love off. In response to your statement that I did not turn it off, I stated, you killed it. When you looked me in the eye that morning, you decided to go with him. A simple bit of metal was all that the ring was. After that, I decided to sell it. As a conclusion, I stated, it was sufficient to cover the initial payment for this condominium. To put it another way, you did assist me in constructing my future, just not the one that you desired. When she opened her mouth, she did not produce any sound. She stared around the store, at the costly furniture, at the life she could have had, and at the man she had given up for a guy who had cheated on her with a teenager. She was overwhelmed with these thoughts. It was my words that I said, I have to leave. Here I am, Sophia, waiting for me. Now we are preparing dinner. Sophia. She mumbled, referring to herself. The word my girlfriend had a delicious tang to it when I said it. She trusts me and I trust her, I said. It is pleasant. Should you give it a shot at some point? I abandoned her and turned my back on her. A response was not something I waited for. Unfortunately, I did not turn around to see if she was weeping. I walked in the direction of the exit, toward the crisp evening air, toward my bike, and toward a future that was finally mine to own. The store was completely silent, and the silence was absolutely breathtaking. The only thing that could be heard was silence. We are grateful that you are watching. You should not only hit the like button, but you should also subscribe to the channel. What are your thoughts on the story that was told? Leave a comment below and share it with all of your friends. My family was too broke for my birthday while my sister got a lavish party, but when a college honored me, they suddenly came crawling back. I'm William Carter, the oldest child. 24-year-old certified welder who is the first in his family to complete a vocational program. You'd think that would elicit a nod or a group embrace. Nope. When I passed my certification exam, my mother texted me. Oh, that is cool. Please let us know if you need a new lunchbox. Smiling face with smiling eyes. They assumed I was still the child who failed to RSVP to his own prom, not the guy who could design a structural beam in under 30 seconds. My sister Lily might receive applause for sneezing. 2 years younger, 4 shades blonder, and endowed with the type of star student energy that my parents breathed like secondhand smoke. Growing up, she had a whole shelf of participation awards. I had a drawer full of receipts for part-time jobs, groceries, gas, and steel-toed boots. She took dance instruction. By the age of 15, I had a mop and was working on Sundays at Smiley's car wash. It was not jealousy. It was erosion. One missed moment at a time. When my 18th birthday rolled around, my mother announced, "We're skipping gifts this year, budgeting's tight." But 2 months later, Lily had a full-fledged Sweet 16 party with a chocolate fountain and a bounce house. A bouncy house. I didn't inform them when I passed my welding certification at 16, following 3 years of night classes and double shifts. I just grabbed myself a burger and fries, sat in the work van, and let the silence suffice. At least Ratchet, my rescued mutt, wagged his tail as if I had won the lotto. So, when Lily's college graduation rolled around, I didn't anticipate a big deal. I wasn't even expecting a medium bargain. However, what I witnessed was a 5-act play with food. Dylan, our relative with a constantly backward cap and a podcast that nobody listens to, shared a slideshow on Instagram. The subtitles read like a press release, "Lily made it. We are so proud of our valedictorian queen." There they all were. Mom, Dad, Aunt Linda, Uncle Peter, and even Great Aunt Ruth, whose last reported movement was in 2014. They were all clinking glasses in the garden, with matching t-shirts, monogrammed napkins, and a cake taller than my apartment's fridge. I blinked, scrolled, and waited. Mom finally sent me a text. "We will celebrate yours later, Red Art. I'm really proud of you." Number when? No telephone call. Just the classic later that never comes. I glanced at my cracked phone screen, sitting alone in my studio apartment above a hardware store. Ratchet snoozing next to me like a gremlin in a dog bed. The spaghetti I microwaved had become cold. I did not want the glitter or the cake. I wanted to be seen. The next morning, I pulled on my grease-stained boots, threw a breakfast burrito in my face, and left for work. We were short a worker, so I worked the entire shift on the industrial pipe job, welding through heat and metal fumes. It was exhausting but made sense. Unlike family. 3 weeks have passed. There was no word, no follow-up, no, hey, let's celebrate now. Not even a, how's work? From anyone. It was as if I had developed an allergy to group conversations. Dylan appeared unexpectedly at my workplace. He didn't text or call, he simply drove up in his beat-up Toyota, sunglasses on, as if he were filming a documentary. I was piling metal rods into the truck bed when he approached and said, "Dude, you're not going to believe what I just got asked." I wiped sweat from my brow and gave him the same expression I give failing soldering equipment. "This should not be about a podcast episode." He grinned. "Nope, it's about you." And that's when it all began. I squinted at Dylan as if the sun itself were suspicious. "You're saying someone asked you to talk to me?" "Technically, they asked if you'd be available," Dylan explained, raising his brow as if it made a difference. "But yeah." I folded my arms and leaned on the truck's bed. My shirt was half saturated with sweat. Ratchet, who I occasionally bring to work, glanced up from the shade under the trailer, as if he too was braced for disappointment. "Okay, spit it out. Am I being drafted or kidnapped?" Dylan appeared overly enthusiastic about someone delivering a message. "So, this guy I know, Victor," he said. "He is on the board of the technical college downtown. They're doing this new trades campaign, build the future or something like that, and they're looking for people to feature, like real grads who came up through the grind, not some guy holding a clipboard in a suit pretending to know what a rivet gun is." I blinked. "And you give them my name?" "Well, I showed them your Instagram video, where you were replacing that broken waterline in the rain. You resembled a welding god." "That wasn't rain," I mumbled. "It was a burst pipe, and I had bronchitis for a week after." "Exactly. Real grit. They loved it. They want to meet you. Said your story is authentic. They're tired of showing white collars holding blueprints. They want the guy who actually does it." I stared at him, then slowly looked over my shoulder, as if there was another William behind me. One that mattered more. I said, "Wait." With a dry voice. "Let me guess. They're offering me exposure, right? Maybe a pizza coupon." Dylan cracked a joke. "No, dude. There's a stipend. Like $2,000. Plus, they'll feature you on all the college's ads, posters online, maybe even a billboard if they raise the budget." I hadn't noticed, my inner monologue quickly joined in. They want to put my name out there, literally and publicly, which, ironically, was something my own family never did. I glanced down at my grease-stained boots. The tools clinked behind me as the other guys loaded up. The idea seemed absurd. Me. A walking afterthought at every holiday dinner. Being asked to represent something. "What's the catch?" I inquired, half laughing, half serious. "No catch. They just want to meet you first. See if you're comfortable on camera. You just share your story. Maybe do some shots of you welding. Talking about your journey. Show people that not every success story wears a tie." I didn't respond promptly. Instead, I reached for my thermos, took a long drink of lukewarm coffee, and reflected about my graduation. I just stood there alone in a half-empty auditorium, holding my rolled-up certificate. No one applauded or cheered my name. And now some strangers want to place me on a billboard. I cleared my throat. "Fine," I said. "I'll go to the meeting. But if this turns out to be a pyramid scheme for selling toolboxes to grandmothers, I'll weld your door shut." Dylan smiled as if he had just pulled off a magic act. "Deal. And believe me, this is going to be massive." The meeting was held 2 days later at the community college's main building. I'd never been there before. My welding program was located across town in a renovated warehouse that smelled of rust, perspiration, and accomplishment. This place had espresso machines and potted plants. Dylan had to counsel me on not showing up in my work boots. I wore pants and the nicest polo I possessed, which still had a fading bleach mark at the sleeve. I entered that meeting room feeling like a construction worker at a yacht club. But they greeted me as if I were a headline speaker. The campaign coordinator, Naomi, posed thoughtful questions. Victor, the board member, had already learned half of my tale via Dylan. They inquired about my shifts, training, and what I wish people knew about trade labor, and I did not sugarcoat anything. I told them about working late, choosing tools over textbooks, and seeing my sister receive standing ovations for honors I had no idea existed as I patched up rusted plumbing in a basement that smelled like damp carpet and regret. They listened. When I finished, Naomi smiled and added, "We'd be honored to feature you." That night I sat in my apartment with Ratchet curled up next to me. I gazed at the email they sent, confirming the campaign timeline. One statement stood out. "We'll reveal the campaign at the summer commencement ceremony." My stomach flipped. Summer has begun. The same one that my cousin Dylan was attending. My family planned to attend the same ceremony again for someone else. But this time, it was not about them. It was about me. I almost backed out on the first day of filming. I arrived with oil still under my fingernails. Naomi assured me that was great realism, carrying a clipboard as the cameraman set up beside a stack of steel beams. They recorded me welding, sweating, grinding through sparks, and talking about things I'd never expressed aloud. For example, I used to sneak back into the house after 3 a.m. In high school, I worked janitorial shifts, stepping over loose floors to avoid waking up anyone. Or how my father once told a family dinner that I was taking a gap year while I was actually working 60 hours a week moving timber on a construction site. The crew didn't interrupt, no phony tears, just nodding and listening. Naomi also had me conduct a sit-down interview. There was no rehearsing, no script, simply questions like, "What kept you going?" And, "What do you wish people knew about this path?" I answered honestly. I wanted to be useful. Even if no one applauded, it was necessary. The camera did not wink, neither did Naomi. Then came the question that threw me off guard. "Do your family know you're part of this campaign?" I choked back tears. "Not really," I replied. "They know I work, but not that I'm proud of it." She smiled softly and scrawled something down. "They will." Over the next week, they recorded more of my workshop, the worn boots outside my entrance, and Ratchet wagging his tail like a four-legged mascot. They even captured a time-lapse of me erecting a unique metal railing that I created from scratch. It all felt less like a production, and more like a peculiar form of therapy, as if I had been hushed in lowercase letters my entire life. And now, I'm being written in bold. But I didn't tell anyone. Nor my mother, nor my father, and not Lily. Especially not Lily. I didn't hide it out of spite. Not precisely. I just didn't want to give them the opportunity to downplay it, which they would. If I told them I was going to be featured at a commencement ceremony, they'd probably think, "Oh, how nice for a trade thing." If I mentioned the billboard, the response would be, "Really? You're not joking." So I didn't say anything. Allow them to celebrate Dylan's graduation as if it were another family coronation. Allow them to pose in their pastel clothes and share captions regarding legacy and future leaders. Meanwhile, I continued to show up to work, taking Naomi's calls, approving headshots, checking quotes, and witnessing my name transition. From an email subject line to a flyer mock-up to a full banner design. Naomi called one afternoon to check the final details. "We'll reveal the new Build the Future campaign at the opening of the commencement ceremony. Your face will be on the main screen during the intro along with your quote." I took a break. "What quote?" she said, laughing. "The one you gave us. The thing about wanting to be useful, even if nobody clapped. It hit hard in editing. You'll see." Mom sent me a group text the night before the ceremony. "I'm excited for Dylan's big day tomorrow. Everyone remembers to wear blue, with a cheerful face and eyes." I stared at it for a time. Blue, the same color I wore when I moved out, when I skipped my own graduation and ate drive-through tacos in the parking lot. I considered simply answering, "See you there," but I didn't. Not yet. I simply smiled, turned off my phone, lay out my cleanest pants, polished my boots, and printed the email Naomi supplied with my official badge and parking pass. This time, I was not sneaking in. This time, I received an invitation. The morning of the event, I arrived early. It's too early. The auditorium lobby smelled like cheap cologne and new diploma covers. Staff were still pasting signs on folding tables, organizing name tags, and testing microphones. Naomi waved at me and handed me a badge with my name on it. Only my name. Not Lily's brother. Not +1. Simply William Carter in bold. "Are you ready?" she said. "Born ready?" I inquired, before panicking and adding, "I mean sure." She laughed and handed me a tiny envelope. "After your feature plays, we'll bring you backstage. The dean wants to give you a quick thank you. They're adding your quote to the college website." I didn't see it. "What? Like permanently?" "Yep," she commented. "With your face next to it." I slid the envelope into my jacket pocket as if it were made of glass. Around 9:45 a.m., people began to arrive, including parents dressed in suits and friends clutching bouquets. Every fourth individual carried balloons. I located a seat at the back. Not concealed, but quiet. Naomi informed me they'd be featuring me after the video anyhow, so I might as well enjoy the show. At 10:02, I spotted them. My family. Mom dressed in her regular modest church glam gown, complete with pearls. Dad wore a blazer that I hadn't seen since his unsuccessful HOA campaign. And Lily, her hair flawlessly curled, held an iced latte as if it were a part of her hand. They did not see me. Not that they were looking. They took seats closer to the front, 2 rows behind the graduates. Dylan stood close, taking selfies as if he were going to perform at Coachella. He pointed to the large "Welcome Graduates" banner and muttered something that made Lily laugh so hard she tilted her cup. I just watched. And maybe for a brief minute, I felt the familiar pit in my gut. The one who murmured, "This isn't your crowd. This isn't your day." The lights dimmed, and everything changed. A spotlight illuminated the stage. The announcer, a faculty member with a voice suitable for morning radio, welcomed everyone to the summer commencement ceremony. As we honor this year's graduates, we'd like to spotlight the stories that don't usually make the front page. The modest accomplishments, the unsung builders, the hands that literally shape our world. My spine straightened. Today, the narrator continued, we launch our new campaign, Build the Future, featuring someone who reminds us what determination looks like, even when nobody's watching. The screen flashed, music played, and then my face emerged. Not a selfie. Not a grainy phone photo. A clear cinematic shot of me welding in slow motion, sparks flying, my eyes hidden behind the mask. My quote below. I just wanted to be useful, even if no one clapped. There was silence in the room. Then more clips. Time-lapse video showing me constructing the railing, mending a burst pipe in the rain, and lifting a welding mask with sweat on my brow. It cut to an interview tape of me talking about working night jobs in high school and how trade school was not a backup plan, but rather the plan. The video concluded with the campaign's tagline, Build the future in every way that matters. When the lights came back on, there was a moment of silence before applauding. Big, genuine and loud applause. People began turning. A staff member went forward and asked, William Carter, could you please stand? I stood, anxieties kicking like mule in my chest, but I stood. My cousin Dylan's mouth literally dropped open. I saw it from across the auditorium. My father leaned in toward my mother, apparently muttering something with a frown. Lily stared at me as if I were some stranger who had photobombed her graduation party. The applause continued going. People who had never met me applauded. My own relatives simply stared. Naomi smirked as I moved into the backstage hallway. Your family didn't know? Nope, I told them. Damn, she said quietly, almost proud. That's one hell of a reveal. Backstage smelt like coffee, fresh paper, and a faint hint of tense sweat. I followed Naomi down a narrow hallway crowded with event staff. Someone gave me a thumbs up. Another brought me a bottle of water with a wink, as if I'd won something. I don't think I'd ever received that many congratulations in a single minute before. We entered a side room, and the dean, a tall, silver-haired guy with a voice like smooth gravel, shook my hand as if I had just returned from battle. William Carter, he said kindly. It's an honor to meet the face of our future. I wanted to contradict him and say I was just a welder who happened to be in front of a TV crew, but instead I nodded, smiled and said, Thanks. This means a lot. He handed me a printed version of the campaign poster, with my quotation and name placed under the headline. We'll be putting this up in the main hallway for the fall semester, he told me. You've already had students asking about the welding program. I hadn't noticed. Seriously? He asked, smiling. Your story is important. Never forget that. 15 minutes later, I sneaked back into the lobby. The ceremony was still going on, with alphabetical names called out in waves, but the hallway was packed with early exiters, bored siblings, and caffeine-deprived parents. Lily stood near the exit, like a glitch in the Matrix. Alone. I'm holding a mostly empty iced latte, and glancing at a promotional poster attached to a display board. My poster. When I stopped a few steps away, she didn't glance up. Looks better in print, I commented. She turned slowly. For a little moment, her countenance remained unchanged. That poised, magazine cover calm she had always worn. Then it cracked slightly, allowing a question to emerge. You didn't tell anyone? Nope. She blinked. Why? I shrugged. I figured it was just a trade thing. Nothing worth toasting. Lily opened her mouth, then closed it. Her jaw flexed. She looked at the poster again. I didn't know you were doing stuff like this because you didn't ask. The remarks were honest, not spiteful, and it seemed to hit harder. I'd always thought you were, doing okay, she told me. I was. But this? You're practically on a screen in front of everyone. Yeah, weird, right? She exclaimed, taking a brief breath. Not quite a chuckle and not quite a sigh. Then without looking at me, she remarked, Mom looked like she saw a ghost. I'm surprised she didn't claim I photoshopped it. This actually made me giggle. Quiet. Almost guilty. We stood there for a second. Not as enemies. Not quite like siblings either. Just folks who grew up in the same house but never really shared a narrative. I didn't mean to make it a thing, I told you. You didn't, Lily answered. We did. I nodded. Anyway, she continued, it was cool. You looked like you. That was the most genuine compliment I had ever received from her. I wasn't even sure what to do with it. So I just muttered, thanks. As I began to walk by her, I noticed movement in the corner of my eye. Mom and Dad were loitering near the vending machines, conversing, checking their phones, and staring up at the poster as if it had committed a personal offense. They didn't approach or wave, just stood there in their awkward little cluster. And for the first time in my life, their silence did not make me feel small. I felt solid. They may have approached me. They could have said, congratulations, or we are proud of you, but they did not. I didn't need them to. I had something better now. Proof. And peace. By the time I came home, my phone resembled a punching bag employed by the notification gods. I had 38 unread texts, a dozen missed calls, and 3 Instagram tags from people I hadn't spoken with since high school gym class. I was expecting a few awkward, wow, you looked clean messages. Instead, I opened Naomi's direct message first. Videos live already, 9.2K views in the first hour, you brought it, fire. I followed the directions. There I was. Put your mask down. Welding torch in hand. Molten sparks flash across the screen like fireflies in a storm. The comments section provided more than just support. It was validation. My brother needed to hear this. This is what kids should see more of. He gets it. Real work. True tale. I do not even weld. And it hit hard. One even stated, I hope his family is proud, which made my soul laugh out loud. Then came the group chat tsunami. Family redart. 18 members, lighted up like a slot machine. Mom. Why didn't William tell us? We were very astonished. Dad. I just saw it. You seemed respectable. I didn't expect that level of polish. Lily. You're quite famous now, LOL. Can I say that I know you? Then came the flood of extended family members reacting as if they had just discovered Bigfoot in their garden. Uncle Peter. Wait, is that our William from the college video? Aunt Linda. You should have told us. We would have clapped more loudly. Cousin Megan said, oh my God, I cried. My co-workers also saw it. And of course Mom's pièce de résistance. We're planning a small dinner to celebrate you this weekend. Just family. Ah yes, just family. The same group that skipped my trade school graduation and live-streamed Lily's from the back of a rented party limo. Suddenly they were laying down the red carpet for some takeout pizza and guilt appetizers. Hard pass. I did not respond. Not right away. Instead I reshared the official campaign post Naomi had tagged me in, which included my quote and banner image. There's no caption, just a hammer and a flame. The likes started trickling in, then flowing, and finally overflowing. Old classmates I hadn't spoken to in years, some of whom used to sneer at me for wearing work boots to school, were now reacting with fire and flex biceps emojis. One man I hardly knew DM'd, bro, I showed this to my dad. He said, you speak for all of us. Another person said, you made welding look noble. Then, humorously, I received a note from my old chemistry teacher. Oh, and I knew you would go far. Please let me know if you would want to come talk to my class. I almost responded, you once called me a distraction with a wrench. But I let it go. Growth or anything. That night Lily texted me separately. So, are you doing more of these? I responded simply, they asked me to appear on a panel next semester. After a few minutes, she said, that's actually amazing. I believe you found your thing. Then, it's crazy. We hadn't even realized. Didn't you realize? No. They did not. Because they never asked. They were too busy applauding for caps and gowns to notice the guy wearing welding gloves and working night shifts. Mom messaged again before bed. Don't forget, we're planning Sunday dinner for your big day. Please let us know if that works. It's funny how a stranger's applause reminds people of your name and makes them want to host dinners. I stared at the message for a moment. Then I muted the chat. I had one more thing to complete before going to bed. I opened the marketing video again. I watched the line play and all I wanted was to be useful, even if no one clapped. Then I said to no one. Turns out they clap eventually after everyone else does first. I wasn't actually intending on attending the meal. But Sunday arrived and something inside me said, let them sit with it. Let them see you now. Not the packaged version. So I showed up. Clean jeans, a black button-up. Nothing flashy, just crisp enough to be unrecognizable to the version of myself that they used to mock. Ratchet stayed home. Even he did not deserve this kind of second-hand disgrace. When I pulled into the driveway, the first thing I saw was a sad little "Congratulations William" banner hanging over the porch light. It was obviously a remnant from Lily's celebration. Same typeface and colors. They just taped over her name. If you looked closely enough, you might see a faint B beneath the O classic. Inside, the living room smelled of store-bought lasagna and worry. The whole family was present. Mom, Dad, Lily, Uncle Peter, and even Aunt Linda, who hadn't spoken to me since she discovered me using the garage fridge as a child. They all smiled like performers who had just realized the director was sitting in the front row. Mom hugged me in what seemed like a job interview. William, look at you. Yes. I replied. I know. I cleaned it up. Dad patted me on the back. Big man on campus, huh? It wasn't a campus, I responded calmly. Just a stage. But close. We sat down at the table. Paper dishes, generic Coke, and a store-bought cake with "You did it" inscribed in red icing, as if someone had forgotten what it was. The discomfort was thick enough to spread on toast. Then Mom raised her glass, a single cup of sparkling cider. To William, she added cheerfully, for making us proud. We always knew he had it in him. Everyone grinned. Everyone but me. I took a sip of water and did not say anything. Because no, they did not always know. They did not applaud when I passed my certification exam. They did not upload images after I was hired full-time. They did not show up when I graduated from trade school with perfect attendance. Strangers were sharing my video, and academics were repeating my name, so they knew. As supper progressed, Linda attempted to strike up a conversation. So, do you think you'll be on more billboards? No idea, I replied. But I have 2 crews inquiring about contract work. Wow, she exclaimed, clearly surprised. Lily leaned in, saying, that's impressive. So, what do you actually do now? I asked, smiling slowly. Turns out I can make sparks fly. She rolled her eyes but did not answer. Toward the end of the lunch, Dad finally addressed the question he had plainly been storing for. So what's next for you, son? I wiped my mouth, laid my fork down, and responded. I've got meetings lined up for a local partnership, and I'm thinking about opening my own fabrication space by winter. Dead quiet. Mom blinked. Your own, what now? Shop, I replied. Business license, client list, custom work. You know, a real job. None of them laughed. Nobody breathed, so I pulled away from the table and stood up. I appreciate the effort, I murmured, indicating vaguely toward the cake. But I've got an early morning. Welding doesn't wait. I started to leave, but not before looking squarely at Mom. You know, I remarked with a smile. Lily's celebration featured a band. You might have at least recruited someone with a trumpet. I went away. Let's just say the look on their faces was more than worth a toast. I didn't hear anything from the family in the week after that supper. No follow-ups. No, so proud of you texts. The group discussion contained only a few awkward emoji reactions and one unconnected photo of Linda's new dog. But that Friday was when the time occurred. I was standing in the campus lobby, waiting to meet Naomi about the forthcoming panel, when Dylan strode in, camera bag slung over his shoulder, sunglasses on like he was ready for the press. We established eye contact. He stopped and, attempting to be casual, said, "Hey man, big week, huh?" "Yeah," I replied. "Guess so." "You, really surprised people." I responded with a wink. "You too?" "People didn't expect you to be so quiet." He chuckled nervously and murmured, "Yeah, well, catch you later." He continued to go. I did not ask about the panel. Did not mention the video. But I knew he had seen it. They all did. Later that night I received a notification. Cousin Jason, who recorded part of the graduation on his phone, had uploaded a selfie on Instagram. I clicked without thinking. He was standing in front of the college's main hall. Behind him, the new campaign banner, "Build the Future," featuring William Carter, hung in large lettering. And immediately under the name was the quote, "I just wanted to be useful, even if no one clapped." In the photo, I'm next to Jason. Not posed or intended. Just me, standing nearby, hands in my pockets, staring at the banner, as if I still couldn't believe it was real. But Jason's caption sealed the deal. Didn't expect to see my name up there. No hashtags, no emojis, simply raw, unpleasant honesty. And that spoke louder than any toast could. Within an hour, others began sharing it. Friends, classmates, previous teachers, and a couple of my clients even submitted screenshots, asking if I was the guy in the banner. And the best part, I didn't post anything. I did not explain. I did not elucidate. I did not tag or humble brag. I simply let them see it, allow them to sit with it. Let them know that I didn't need a stage to be proud. I just needed some space to make my own. So I did. Quietly, fully, without requiring applause. They can toast all they want now. But I had already raised a glass to myself. My parents secretly stole the $35,000 inheritance my grandfather left for me and used it on my sister's wedding and education. So I consulted lawyers. I, the 22-year-old male, need to get this off my chest because I don't know what to do anymore. My parents, Laura, 48, and David, 50, have been lying to me about money that was supposed to be mine, and I only found out the truth last week. First, some background information. My grandfather on my mother's side died 3 years ago, when I was 19. He was essentially a second father to me because my father worked long hours when I was growing up. Grandpa Henry taught me to fish, assisted me with my homework, and always made sure I had all I needed for school. He wasn't wealthy, but he saved what he could. Grandpa Henry assured me before he died that he would leave me some money in his will. He said that it was not a fortune, but it would help me get started in life. He wanted me to use it for education or even as a down payment on a house someday. The actual amount was meant to be $35,000, which felt like a lot of money to me at the time. Following the funeral, my parents handled all legal matters. They claimed the probate process would take time and that I should not worry about it. I was grieving and going through my sophomore year of college, so I trusted them to take care of everything. They informed me that the funds would be held in a special account until I graduated. Fast forward to last year. I graduated from college with a degree in accounting and found a decent job at a small corporation. I moved back in with my parents to save money while searching for my own place. That's when I began to inquire about the inherited money more carefully. My parents always offered me different justifications when I brought it up. First, it was still mired in legal concerns. Then it was invested in something that could not be touched. Then my mother explained that there were tax issues that needed to be resolved. I became suspicious, but I didn't want to believe my own parents would lie to me about anything like this. The true difficulty began 6 months ago, when my sister Sophie, a 25-year-old female, became engaged to Ryan, a 26-year-old man. Sophie has always been my parents' favorite, despite their attempts to hide it. She received a car for her 16th birthday, whilst I had to work part-time jobs to save up for mine. She attended a nice private college, but I attended a state school and borrowed money. My parents always claimed they were teaching me responsibility, but Sophie never had to be accountable for anything. When Sophie announced her engagement, my parents immediately began discussing how they would pay for such a large wedding. They threw around figures like $40,000 and $50,000 as if they were nothing. I knew my father earned a solid living as a plant supervisor, but that kind of spending seemed well out of reach. My mother worked part-time in a doctor's office, so their combined annual income was approximately $75,000. I asked my father how they could afford such an expensive wedding, and he became defensive. He said they'd been saving for years, and it was none of my business how they spent their money. That stung because I was still living in their house, paying $400 a month in rent and buying my own groceries most of the time. The wedding planning process lasted several months. My parents were continually attending meetings with caterers, photographers, and event coordinators. Sophie chose this beautiful garment, which cost $3,000. The reception hall alone cost $15,000. Every week there was a new expense that my parents readily consented to cover. Meanwhile, I kept inquiring about my inheritance money because I wanted to begin looking for an apartment. The rent in our region had skyrocketed, and I needed the money for a security deposit and furniture. Every time I inquired, my parents became more furious with me. My father started accusing me of being greedy and impatient. My mother advised me to focus on developing my profession rather than worrying about money I hadn't earned. That comment concerned me because the money was my grandfather's, not theirs. He worked hard his entire life to ensure that I had it. However, whenever I tried to explain this, my parents acted as if I were being unreasonable. Sophie had her wedding 3 weeks ago. It was exactly the type of extravagant occasion my folks had planned. The site was stunning, the food was costly, and there were more than 150 attendees. Sophie appeared joyful, and I attempted to be supportive despite my frustration with my own predicament. But something my Aunt Diane said at the reception got me thinking. She grabbed me aside and complimented my parents on their generosity in spending Henry's money on such a lovely wedding for Sophie. She stated Grandpa Henry would have enjoyed seeing his granddaughter so joyful on her special day. I wasn't sure what she meant at first. When I asked her to explain, she appeared puzzled. She claimed she assumed I was aware that my parents had used my inheritance money to pay for the wedding. She assumed I agreed to it as a gift for my sister. My stomach sank. I informed Aunt Diane I had no idea, and she realized she had said something inappropriate. She attempted to backtrack, but it was too late. She confirmed that my parents withdrew $35,000 from the account where my inheritance was housed and spent it on wedding expenditures. I spent the rest of the reception in a daze. I couldn't believe my parents would do something like this without first asking me. That money was explicitly left to me by my grandfather. They couldn't just spend family money as they wanted. When we arrived home that night, I faced my folks. I asked them directly if they had spent my inheritance money on Sophie's wedding. They initially tried to deny it, but when I mentioned what Aunt Diane had told me, they eventually accepted the reality. My mother burst into tears and explained that they had planned to repay me after Sophie's honeymoon. She stated they needed the money right away for wedding deposits, and they figured I wouldn't mind assisting my sister. My father was less apologetic. He stated that Sophie's wedding was more important than me finding an apartment right away, and that as a family, we should support one another. I inquired how they could make that decision without consulting me first. The money was not theirs to lend or give away. My father became enraged and told me that I was living in their house and barely contributing. Therefore I should be grateful that they were managing my money appropriately. He stated spending it on Sophie's wedding was preferable to letting me waste it on an apartment that I couldn't truly afford anyway. That's when I understood they didn't mean to give me the money at all. They had always intended to use it for Sophie's wedding, and all of their reasons about legal and tax complications were nothing more than falsehoods to keep me quiet until after the wedding. I informed them that I needed my money back immediately. My mother explained that they no longer had it because it had been spent entirely on wedding expenditures. My father told me I was being selfish, that Sophie deserved a wonderful wedding after everything she had accomplished in her life. I questioned what I was supposed to have done that was less essential than Sophie's college degree and involvement. My father couldn't give me a straight answer. He just stated that Sophie had always been more responsible, and that they trusted her judgment more than mine. The talk concluded with my father informing me that if I didn't like how they handled things, I should find another place to live. My mother was still crying and promising to find a way to repay me someday, but she couldn't say when. I've been staying at my friend Jake's apartment for the past week as I decide out what to do. My parents have texted me a few times, indicating they want to talk, but I'm not sure what to say. They stole my inheritance money and spent it on my sister's wedding without my approval. They then lied to me about it for several months. Sophie called me yesterday, claiming she had no knowledge what had transpired. She claimed my parents told her they had saved up the money for her wedding, and she had no idea it was from my inheritance. She promised to repay me with the wedding gifts she and Ryan received, but it was only approximately $8,000 in cash and home stuff. I'm not sure whether I believe Sophie didn't know. She had to recognize that our parents couldn't afford a $45,000 wedding on their current income, but even if she didn't know, the damage had already been done. I've been thinking about speaking with a lawyer, but I'm not sure if I have any legal options. Despite the fact that the inherited money was meant to be held for me, it was in an account in my parents' names. I have no written agreement regarding when or how I was meant to receive it. My grandfather worked his entire life and saved that money just for me to have a better start than he did. My parents threw it away on Sophie's birthday, and now they're making me feel awful because I'm sad about it. I just need some guidance on what to do next. Should I try to work something out with my parents? Should I accept that they have shown me how much they appreciate me in comparison to Sophie? I can't afford to employ a lawyer on my current wage, and I'm not sure I want to sue my own family. But I can't get over the notion that they stared me in the eyes for months while lying to me about something so essential. How can I ever trust them again? Update 1. I can't believe how much support I received for my original post. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and shared similar experiences. I wish I had better news, but since my last post, things have become worse. After writing the first piece, I decided to attempt talking to my parents once again. I returned to their house when I knew Sophie would not be present, because I wanted to have an honest chat without her interfering. My mother answered the door and burst into tears as soon as she saw me. She continued expressing how sorry she was and how she never intended for things to become so messed up. My father was seated in his recliner, watching TV, and barely looked up as I entered. I sat down at the kitchen table with my mother and asked her to explain exactly what had happened to the money. She explained that after my grandfather died, the $35,000 was deposited into a joint account with both my parents and my names on it. The way things were set up, any of us could withdraw money without the other's approval. She stated that around 8 months ago, when Sophie became engaged, they began looking into wedding prices and discovered they couldn't afford what Sophie wanted. Sophie had her heart set on this particular venue and had previously paid a deposit with money she and Ryan had saved. But the remaining debt was far too much for my parents to handle. Sophie was growing anxious about having to cut back on her plans, so my father proposed they draw from my inheritance temporarily. The plan was that they would use the money for wedding deposits and then repay it before I needed it for an apartment. But then the wedding expenses continued rising. The catering bill was more than anticipated. Sophie decided she wanted live music rather than a DJ. The photographer's package was more pricey than they anticipated. My parents always convinced themselves that they would just borrow a bit more and figure out how to repay it later. By the time the wedding occurred, they had spent nearly the entire $35,000. My mother claimed she kept intending to tell me what was going on, but she was scared I'd become furious and want the money back right away. She figured if they could just get through the wedding, they'd have enough time to figure out a repayment plan. I asked her what this payback plan was intended to be, considering that they didn't have an extra $35,000 on hand. She admitted that they had not really thought it through. At that point, my father joined the conversation and stated that they hoped to repay me over time, perhaps $500 per month or so. I pointed out that at $500 per month, it would take them nearly 6 years to repay me, and that was assuming they could afford $500 a month on top of their usual expenses. My father became defensive and stated I should be more understanding of their financial condition. That's when I posed the question that had been bugging me the most. I questioned why Sophie's wedding was more important than the future my grandfather intended for me. My father stated Sophie worked well in college and deserved a great wedding. He stated I was only beginning out in my job and didn't need the money right away. I asked him why he was allowed to make that decision instead of me. That was my inheritance, not his. My grandfather left it to me particularly so that I may have possibilities that he never had. My father said that as parents, they knew what was best for the family as a whole. The conversation deteriorated from there. My mother repeatedly apologized and cried, but my father appeared to believe he had done nothing wrong. He claimed that families are supposed to help each other out, and that I was selfish for not wanting to contribute to Sophie's happiness. I informed them that I needed to view the bank statements for the account where my inheritance was housed. I wanted to know when the money was withdrawn and how it was used. My father declined, stating that it was none of my business because the account was also in their names. That's when I knew that talking to them wouldn't fix anything. They had made their decision, and they were not going to accept responsibility for it. I told them I needed time to think about what to do next and then departed. But the story does not stop there. My Aunt Diane phoned me 2 days following our talk. She stated she felt bad for accidentally revealing the truth at Sophie's wedding, and wanted to make sure I was aware of the entire scenario. It turns out that my grandfather discussed his plans for my inheritance with various family members prior to his death. He had expressly stated to Aunt Diane, my Uncle Frank, and my mother's sister Linda that the money was intended to assist me become established after college. He had even written a letter outlining his wishes, which my parents were intended to deliver to me along with the bequest. I never received a letter. When I asked my parents about it, my mother said she had no idea what I was talking about. Aunt Diane, on the other hand, claimed to have witnessed my grandfather handing over the letter to my parents at the hospital just before his death. Aunt Diane also said something that made my blood boil. Apparently my parents had been telling other family members that I was careless with money, which is why they had held on to my inheritance for so long. They warned me that if they gave it to me too soon, I'd waste it on dumb things. Several relatives had lauded my parents for their responsibility and concern for my best interests. My aunt claimed she never questioned it because my parents appeared to know what they were doing, and she figured they would give me the money when I was ready. She now recognized that my parents had been telling tales to justify holding my money while they planned how to spend it on Sophie. She was enraged, saying she hoped my grandfather was still alive to witness what they had done. The worst thing was that Sophie appeared to know more than she had previously revealed. Aunt Diane told me that at a family BBQ last summer, Sophie indicated to several people that our parents were helping her pay for the wedding using money from Grandpa Henry. She expressed gratitude that he was still able to participate to her special day, despite his absence. Sophie knew the money came from my grandfather, but she either didn't recognize it as my inheritance or didn't care. When I asked her about it, she said that she assumed the money was intended for me but didn't ask questions since she didn't want to make trouble. Sophie stated that she expected our parents to check with me before using the money, and when they did not express any problems, she assumed everything was all right. She stated she never meant to take anything away from me, and that she would go to any length to make things right. I asked her if she and Ryan would be willing to take out a loan to repay me the entire sum. Sophie said that they couldn't afford to take on so much debt right after getting married, especially because Ryan planned to return to school for his master's degree next year. She promised to give me the money from their wedding gifts again, but she stated it would take them years to save the rest. She offered that we work out a payment plan in which she and Ryan pay me back a small amount each month, along with whatever our parents could give. I told Sophie it wasn't good enough. My grandfather did not give me $35,000 with the intention of having me collect tiny payments from various family members over the next 5 years. He left me that money to spend whenever I needed it, which was right now. Sophie burst into tears, saying she never intended for all of this to happen. She stated that she loved me and did not want this circumstance to harm our relationship, but I informed her that the damage had already been done. She had benefited from money that was not hers, and now she was requesting that I take partial payments over several years rather than making it right away. I haven't communicated with my parents since our last conversation at their place. They've texted me multiple times wanting me to call them, but I don't see the point. They've made it obvious that Sophie's happiness comes first, even before my future or my grandfather's wishes. My mother left me a voicemail last week saying they had spoken with a financial consultant about taking out a home equity loan to repay me, but it would take several weeks to process and the interest rate would be quite high. She stated that they were willing to do whatever was necessary to repair our relationship. I'm not certain I believe them. They've already lied to me so many times that I can't believe anything they say. And even if they eventually repay me, it won't change the fact that they stole from me and lied about it for months. I've been staying with Jake and his roommates, but I can't do it indefinitely. I need to locate my own house, but without my inheritance money, I can't pay a security deposit and the first month's rent on anything nice. I'm practically back at square one, but now I don't have a family to rely on. Some individuals on my original post suggested I consult with a lawyer, so I did. The lawyer suggested I could have a case, but it would be expensive to pursue and the outcome was uncertain. Because the account was in both my parents' and my names, they had legal access to the funds, even though they weren't authorized to use it morally. The lawyer advised me that my best option would be to document everything and try to get my parents to admit in writing that they took the money without my authorization. Even so, a lawsuit would likely be more expensive than I could afford, and there is no assurance I would win. So I'm stuck. My parents took my inheritance. My sister benefited from it. And there isn't much I can lawfully do without spending money that I don't have. The saddest part is that they all keep telling me to get over it and go on with my life. But how am I expected to get over the reality that my own family was so unconcerned about my future that they would steal from me to pay for a party? How can I ever trust any of them again? Update 2. I need to update everyone on what's been going on because the situation has gotten even more convoluted. Some of you may recall that my parents mentioned that they were looking into a home equity loan to repay me. That fell through, but not for the reasons I anticipated. About 3 weeks ago, I received a call from my Uncle Frank, my father's brother. He claimed he needed to talk to me about something crucial regarding my grandfather's estate. I hoped he had discovered new facts that could assist me in recouping my losses. We met at a cafe near his workplace, and what he told me dramatically altered what I thought I understood about the situation. It turns out that my grandfather had planned more than just a $35,000 inheritance for me. Uncle Frank revealed that about 5 years before his death, my grandfather began placing money into a separate investment account designated for my schooling and future. This was in addition to the $35,000 he was scheduled to get from his normal savings. My grandfather's investing account had grown to about $60,000 by the time he died. The intention was that the $35,000 from his savings would be accessible to me immediately after graduation to assist me get started, while the investment money would be retained until I was 25 or married, whichever came first. My grandfather had informed Uncle Frank of this arrangement and urged him to ensure that everything was handled appropriately. But this is what made me sick to my stomach. My parents were aware of both accounts. They were meant to tell me about the investing account when I reached 25, which is 3 years away. But according to Uncle Frank, they had also been withdrawing money from that account. Uncle Frank stated that he had been receiving quarterly statements to his address since my grandfather preferred that someone other than my parents manage the investment account. When he reviewed the most current statement, he noted that there had been multiple substantial withdrawals during the previous 2 years. The account, which should have held nearly $60,000, suddenly contained less than $15,000. Uncle Frank confronted my parents about the missing money, and they acknowledged to using it to cover a variety of bills, including a portion of Sophie's wedding costs. I couldn't believe what I heard. Not only had my parents taken the $35,000 that was supposed to be mine right away, but they had also been taking from a larger account designated for my future. In total, they had taken nearly $80,000 that my grandfather had set aside specifically for me. Uncle Frank admitted that he regretted not paying closer attention to the account. He had trusted my parents to handle everything properly and merely examined the statements on occasion. He claimed if he had known what was going on, he would have intervened much sooner. When I contacted Uncle Frank about my legal possibilities, he stated it was tricky because my parents were named as trustees on the investment account. Technically, they had the ability to remove funds, but they were supposed to work in my best interests and in accordance with my grandfather's intentions. Uncle Frank stated that he had copies of all of the original documents my grandfather had signed when he established the accounts. There was a clear paper trail indicating that both accounts were meant for my benefit, not normal family costs or my sister's wedding. He promised to help me find a lawyer who would operate on a contingency fee basis, which meant I wouldn't have to pay until we won the case. He suggested the proof was sufficient enough that we might be able to recover not only the stolen funds, but also any interest or investment gains I had lost. All of this new information overwhelmed me, but it also made me angrier than I had ever been. My parents had not merely made a wrong judgment with my $35,000 inheritance. They had been steadily taking from me for years, lying to my face about it. I resolved to address them once more before contacting lawyers. I went to their residence with Uncle Frank and insisted that they explain how much money they had taken and how they had spent it. The conversation was nasty. Initially, my parents denied that they had touched the investment account. However, when Uncle Frank showed them the bank statements, they couldn't continue lying. My mother broke down and acknowledged that they had been withdrawing money from the investment account for nearly 2 years. She claimed it began when my father's hours were reduced at work, and they were having difficulty paying their mortgage. They promised themselves they'd repay it when things went better financially. However, instead of reducing their expenses or increasing their income, they continued to take more money as needed. They used it to pay for Sophie's senior year of college, a new roof for their home, and other costs. They were already too far into their relationship by the time Sophie proposed. My dad apologized less than my mother. He claimed they had made years of sacrifices to raise me and Sophie, and they deserved to benefit from my grandfather's money as well. He stated my grandfather would have wanted them to spend the money to keep the family secure and Sophie successful in life. That was when I lost it. I informed my father that he was a thief and a liar and that he had no right to make judgments about money that was not his. My grandfather had trusted them to carry out his desires, but they had entirely broken that trust. My father was furious, accusing me of being disrespectful and ungrateful. He said they had done their best to raise me and Sophie, and I should be grateful for everything they had sacrificed for our family. He accused me of acting like a spoiled brat who believed he was entitled to everything. Uncle Frank stepped in at that point and told my father to stop talking. He claimed my parents had taken nearly $80,000 from their own son and had no right to behave as victims. He gave them 48 hours to come up with a plan to repay every dime, or he would assist me in taking them to court. My mother implored us not to involve lawyers. She claimed it would destroy the family, and Sophie did not deserve to have her marriage damaged by legal issues. She offered to find a way to repay me if I gave them some time. But I was finished giving them time. They had had years to do the right thing, but they decided to continue taking from me while making me feel bad for asking about my own money. I informed them that they had till the end of the week to move the remaining $15,000 from the investment account to an account with simply my name on it. I also requested a formal payment plan for the remaining $65,000 they had taken, with a schedule that did not span decades. My father stated that they could not raise so much money in such a short period of time. He stated that their house was already fully mortgaged and they were ineligible for any additional loans. He accused me of wanting to destroy their lives for money. I told him he had already ruined my life by snatching my future. The money my grandfather had saved was supposed to provide me with chances and security, but they had spent it on things that benefited themselves and Sophie instead. My parents finished the talk by claiming they needed time to think out what to do. Uncle Frank and I left, but not before he informed them that he would be monitoring all of my grandfather's remaining accounts to ensure that no more money was taken. That was 1 week ago. Sophie texted me yesterday, saying she and Ryan had decided to sell some of their wedding gifts and use their honeymoon savings to pay me back faster. She estimated that they could raise $15,000 immediately, and another $10,000 over the next 3 to 4 months. It's something, but not nearly enough to cover the total sum my parents took. And I'm not sure why Sophie and Ryan should have to give up their honeymoon and wedding gifts to rectify something my parents did. I haven't decided whether to accept Sophie's offer or insist on my parents figuring out how to repay me themselves. Part of me believes Sophie should accept some responsibility because she profited from the stolen money, but another part of me feels horrible that she's attempting to mend something she didn't cause. Uncle Frank found me a lawyer who will take the case on contingency. We have a meeting arranged for next week to review all of the materials and determine the best course of action. The lawyer believes we have a solid case, but she warns me that family cases can be very unpleasant and expensive. She explained that even if we win, there is no assurance that my parents will be able to pay the judgment. If they don't have enough assets to cover what they owe me, I may end up with a piece of paper stating that they owe me money but no manner of collecting it. I'm preparing myself for the potential that I'll never get my money back, regardless of what the courts decide. However, at this point, it is no longer just about money. It's about holding my parents accountable for their actions and ensuring they don't harm anyone else in the family. My grandfather worked his entire life and saved every dime he could so that I could have the possibilities he never had. My parents spent that present on themselves while lying to me for years. Even if I never see that money again, I cannot let them get away with what they did. Update 3. This will be my final update because the situation has reached a stage where I need to go on with my life, rather than always reflecting on what my parents did to me. The appointment with the lawyer went better than I anticipated. After going over all of the records Uncle Frank had collected, she was convinced we could win a lawsuit against my parents. The paper trail plainly demonstrated that my grandfather intended both accounts to benefit me, and my parents had broken their obligations as trustees by diverting the funds for personal gain. However, she did confirm what I had already assumed. Even if we won the court case, collecting the money would be practically impossible. After years of refinancing and taking out home equity loans, my parents' house has almost no equity. My father's job at the plant does not provide enough income to satisfy a significant judgment payment, and my mother's part-time employment barely pays her own needs. The lawyer estimated that legal fees would be about $20,000, even on a contingency basis, and we could end up paying more than we could ever recoup. She said the optimum conclusion would be a settlement in which my parents agreed to repay me over a lengthy period of time, but there was no guarantee they would be able to make those payments. After deliberating for a few days, I decided not to continue the lawsuit. I recognized that chasing my parents through court would not get me my money back and would only add to the stress and turmoil for everyone concerned. Uncle Frank expressed disappointment, but claimed he understood my decision. Instead, I resolved to concentrate on what I could actually influence. I utilized the remaining $15,000 in the investment account as a down payment on a tiny apartment across town. It isn't fancy, but it's mine, and I don't have to rely on others to provide a roof over my head. Sophie and Ryan ended up giving me approximately $12,000 after selling some of their wedding gifts and utilizing money they had saved for their honeymoon. I didn't ask them to do it, but Sophie said she couldn't appreciate the things because they were paid for with money that should have been mine. I was grateful, but it also saddened me that my sister felt responsible for correcting something our parents had done. My parents attempted to contact me several times after Uncle Frank and I confronted them. They wrote me long text messages apologizing and promising to find a way to repay me someday. My mother contacted me in tears, pleading with me to give them another chance to make things right. But I learned that their apologies were meaningless unless they were accompanied by meaningful behavior adjustments. They were sorry they were caught, but not enough to make genuine sacrifices to undo what they had done. If they had been willing to sell their home or take dramatic measures to repay me, I might have felt differently. Instead, they kept making excuses for why they couldn't come up with the money, expecting me to be sympathetic and patient. They wanted me to accept their apologies and continue our relationship without them genuinely repairing the damage they had done. I stopped replying to their texts approximately 3 weeks ago. I didn't make a big deal about going no contact or cutting them off permanently. I basically stopped responding to their attempts to communicate. They eventually quit trying. The most difficult thing has been dealing with other family members who think I'm being too harsh. A few relatives have advised me that family is more important than money and that I should forgive my parents for their mistakes. They act as if my parents accidentally spent a few $100s, rather than systematically stole about $80,000 over several years. Aunt Diane and Uncle Frank have supported my decision, but some family members have expressed concern that my grandfather would be dismayed to see the family squabbling over money. That upsets me since my grandfather would not be disappointed in me for advocating for myself. He would be upset in my parents for breaking their trust and stealing from their own kid. Sophie and I have managed to retain a relationship, but it has changed with time. She's been trying to act as if everything is normal between us, but I believe she feels bad about the whole incident. We text occasionally and have had coffee together, but we no longer discuss our parents or money. Ryan appears uncomfortable with me now, which I understand. He is married to Sophie, therefore he is unintentionally caught up in this family turmoil. I don't blame him for anything that happened, but I don't expect him to take sides against his new wife's family. Work has been going well, and I've been working extra hours whenever they're available. I'm saving money more aggressively now since I know I can't rely on others to help me create my future. It's not the way I had hoped to begin adulthood, but at least I know I'm doing it my way. I occasionally think of my grandfather and wonder what he would say about all of this. I like to think he'd be proud of me for sticking up for myself and refusing to allow my folks walk all over me. He constantly told me that a person's character is revealed via how they treat others when no one is looking. My parents revealed their true character when they believed they could get away with stealing from me. The $27,000 I was able to collect is not the $80,000 my grandfather intended for me to have, but it is something. More importantly, I realize that I am stronger than I thought I was, and that I do not require my parents' approval or support to succeed in life. I'm not saying I'll never talk with my parents again, but whatever future relationship we may have will be on my terms. They betrayed my trust in the worst way possible, and they have showed no genuine commitment to regaining it. Until that changes, and if it does, I'm better off without them in my life. Some may see that as cold or unforgiving, but I don't. I'm simply protecting myself from those who have already demonstrated their willingness to lie to and steal from me when it suits them. That is not the type of relationship I want with anyone, family or not. I'm 22 years old, and I'm starting anew without the financial assistance my grandfather desired. It's going to be more difficult than it should have been, but at least I'm doing it honestly, and I can sleep at night knowing I haven't damaged anyone else in order to advance. This is more than I can say about my parents. My parents worshipped my brother and hated me, but karma and my revenge exposed him as a poisoner, kidnapper, and monster they created. My parents were always harsh on me, but I believe they still loved me until my younger brother Liam was born, because our childhood was so vastly different. My parents used my 8th birthday to honor Liam instead. Not because his birthday coincided, but because he earned it. And don't get me wrong, I loved him. Heck, he was the cutest little bean in the world. But in the back of my mind, I'd constantly wonder, don't I deserve it too? It wasn't until I reached 16 that I first spoke out, because they gave Liam a car for my birthday. He was only 12 years old and had never driven before. When I inquired why they didn't purchase me anything, they replied, Liam's happiness should be enough of a gift for me. I just sighed. And that's when I realized I needed to give up on my dream of having loving parents. And because they didn't give me jack poop my entire childhood, I figured that if I got accepted to college, I could use my lack of parenting to pay 20% of my tuition. Because that alone was enough to keep me from feeling like I was drowning in student debt. My mother just burst out laughing and slapped her fist against the table so hard that I thought it might bruise. Son, F off and figure it out, my father responded, smirking. I tried to tell myself it didn't hurt anymore. But it did. I'm not sure why I kept visiting them every holiday season, but I did. I even taught Liam how to drive the car that was supposed to be mine. And every Christmas, I watched as he opened the gifts I never received. But it wasn't until I was 22 that I snapped, since Liam received his college admission letter from the local community college. My parents threw him a party, and I came to show my support. Toward the end, my father tapped his champagne glass to toast. He began by describing Liam as the brilliant son they had never had. Ouch. And just as I was going to leave and head home, they resumed. My father proudly announced that he and my mother would pay for all of his tuition and even buy him a little house so he could live independently and have the whole college experience. My eyes enlarged so widely that I believed my eyelids would split in two. As soon as the visitors started to leave, I gathered my entire family in an upstairs room. What the actual F? I screamed, my phone recording the entire scene in the corner. My mother slapped me across the face. It wasn't forceful, but her ring scratched my cheek, and blood poured out. "You can never be happy for anyone, can you?" she inquired, her tone caustic. "I told you we shouldn't have invited him," my father complained. I looked across to Liam, who was staring at the ground. When they departed, I shut the door and shared the video on every site I could find. And after 2 hours, when no one had seen it, I tagged my entire family in the Instagram comments section. LOL. And I think all that champagne made me sleepy, because I fell asleep on the restroom floor. I awoke at 3 a.m. I awoke with a searing hangover and my parents banging on the door to let them in. "We effing hate you," my parents cried in unison. I feigned to be still sleeping and they soon stopped breathing and gave up. The next morning, the family group chat started up. Some were suggesting that I deserved to be hit. Others called me a shame. It was similar to the comment section of TikTok videos featuring alpha male podcast snippets. In any event, everyone agreed it was best to discuss it in person. So, the next morning, we visited Liam's favorite eatery. It included my parents, Liam, both sets of grandparents, and 3 aunts. Within minutes, the talk had switched from discussing the weather to my parents' parenting methods. I didn't say anything, simply let my grandparents on my father's side defend me. And suddenly, after 2 hours of arguing, my parents apologized. My grandparents had threatened to remove them from the will if they did not treat me like their son. My mother apologized through gritted teeth, then gave a robotic explanation of how she should have handled the matter better as the adult. Meanwhile, my father just shrugged his shoulders and muttered, "I agree with your mom." It was all very forced. And I believe my grandparents noticed, since they told me I could see them instead of my parents when I came home for the holidays. I felt my face light up when they said that, and I moved in the same day. After all was said and done, they sat me down on the couch and told me something that still makes me grin today. "We're still taking your parents out of the will, we just wanted you to get the apology you deserved." For the first time in years, I smiled heartily and I knew all the misery was over. I thought it was. The next morning, I drove my Margaret to the hospital at high speeds. It turns out that someone had placed laxative powder into her food the day before. And if we had arrived at the hospital 4 hours later, she would not have survived. And I knew Liam was behind it. I sat in the hospital waiting room, my hands still trembling from the drive. The doctors had whisked Margaret to intensive care, and all I could do was pace back and forth, rehearsing everything in my head. The family meeting at Liam's favorite restaurant, the forced apologies, and the laxative powder that nearly killed my grandmother. My phone was buzzing with messages from the family group chat, but I couldn't force myself to check. Not yet. Instead, I was thinking about Liam's actions at the restaurant. How he barely touched his food, how he kept staring at Margaret's plate, and how he offered to refill her water glass 3 times. The sliding doors opened, and my grandfather hurried in, still dressed in his pajamas. His face was pallid, and I could tell he had been crying. He drew me into a tight hug, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. When the doctor eventually appeared, she explained that Margaret's system had been overwhelmed by an excessive amount of laxatives. They had stabilized her, but she was very dehydrated and had a hazardous electrolyte imbalance. If we had waited much longer, her heart could have given out. Grandpa's mouth clenched as he heard this. He turned to me with a face I'd never seen before, sheer wrath combined with determination. He requested me to describe everything that transpired at the restaurant, in detail. I talked him through everything. How Liam had insisted on sitting next Margaret. He'd been particularly attentive, frequently straightening her napkin and shifting her water glass. He went to the bathroom shortly after the food arrived and returned just as everyone began eating. My grandfather listened quietly, his knuckles white as he held the armrest of his chair. When I finished, he gently stood up and took out his phone. He called 3 people. His lawyer, a private investigator he knew from his business days, and the restaurant, requesting that they retain any security tape from yesterday. Family members gradually arrived at the hospital during the next few hours. My parents arrived with Liam looking concerned and perplexed. My mother raced over to me, asking what had occurred in a phony, anxious tone. I just stared at her, remembering how she had hit me just days before. Liam remained near the door, hands in his pockets. He kept checking his phone and looking towards the exit. When our eyes met, he swiftly averted his gaze and began discussing education with one of our aunts. The doctor let us see Margaret in shifts. When it was my time, I discovered her awake but feeble, hooked up to several IVs. She clasped my hand as I sat down near her bed. She mumbled that she had felt uncomfortable shortly after dining at the restaurant. The cramps began on the journey home and worsened throughout the night. She'd been too embarrassed to wake anyone until the pain was excruciating. I stayed with her until the visiting hours ended, then returned to my grandparents' house. Grandpa was already present, seated at the kitchen table with a laptop and various printed paperwork. The private investigator had been busy. He showed me the restaurant's surveillance footage on his laptop. The image quality was poor, but you could definitely see Liam getting up from the table and headed to the restroom. Instead of going inside, he ducked into the kitchen for about 30 seconds before returning to the table. My grandfather had also asked the eatery to inspect their inventory. They were missing a big container of industrial-strength laxative powder used to clean grease traps, the same type that the hospital had discovered in Margaret's system. We both understood what this meant, but proving it would be another story. Liam had been cautious. No direct footage of him removing anything or putting it in the food, simply circumstantial evidence that would not be accepted in any official setting. The next morning, I resolved to approach things differently. Instead of confronting Liam directly, I began paying greater attention to his actions. I concealed a security camera in the hallway outside Margaret's room at home, behind an old smoke detector. I also began chronicling everything. Every time Liam came by, every bizarre question he asked regarding Margaret's health. Every time he offered to assist her with her meds or meals, the pattern became apparent. Within days, Liam would arrive unannounced, always when he assumed I wasn't home. He'd ask extensive questions regarding Margaret's rehabilitation, her medication regimen, and when she would be alone. He would offer to pick up her prescriptions or bring her special foods to aid in her recovery. My folks, understandably, felt I was paranoid when I highlighted Liam's unusual conduct. My mother actually chuckled, saying I was envious because Liam was such a kind grandchild. My father accused me of attempting to turn the family against Liam due to the college financial crisis. But I wasn't the only person who noticed. Grandpa had also been watching, and he had seen enough. He changed all of the locks on the house and set up a robust security system. He also hired a part-time nurse to be with Margaret during the day, closely monitoring everything she ate and drank. That's when the harassing began. Anonymous notes started appearing beneath Margaret's bedroom door. Crude messages told her she was going to die soon, that she should have minded her own business, and that elderly people like her were better off dead. The handwriting was concealed, but the time was questionable. They only emerged on the days Liam had visited. I collected each note and saved it in a folder with the dates and times it was found. Then Margaret's pills started disappearing. First, 1 or 2 tablets, then whole bottles. The nurse reported that someone had entered the medicine cabinet despite the new locks. Liam was conveniently available when these instances occurred, and he was always the first to offer to assist in the search for the lost medications. I realized I needed more definite evidence, so I upgraded the hidden camera in the hallway to one with higher quality and night vision. I also put one in Margaret's room, cleverly disguised in a bookcase so it could view both the door and her bedside table. 3 days later, I had everything I needed. The video captured Liam slipping into the house at 3 a.m., with a key he must have copied before we changed the locks. He walked straight to Margaret's room and stood over her bed for a few minutes, simply watching her sleep. He then took something from his pocket and began mixing it into the water glass on her bedside. I quickly created multiple copies of the footage, one on my laptop, one on an external drive, and one uploaded to a secure cloud service. I was not taking any chances this time. However, when I presented the footage to my parents and other family members, Liam had already planned his defense. He said I deep-faked the video out of envy and was attempting to frame him because I couldn't take him being the favorite child. He was pretty good. He burst out crying, stating he loved Margaret and would never hurt her. He accused me of being mentally ill and needed professional help. He even alleged that I had poisoned Margaret and was now blaming it on him. Some family members trusted him. They pointed out how tech-savvy I was, noting that I'd already made one video attempting to make the family look terrible. My aunt suspected that I was the one who found Margaret unwell and drove her to the hospital. The family was dividing down the middle. Those who had always backed Liam, including my parents, sided with them. Those who saw through the partiality over the years supported me and my grandparents. But Margaret never wavered. Despite her vulnerability, she spoke out at every family meeting, stating that something was wrong with Liam and that she could feel it in her bones. Her voice had weight, yet her weakness led others to disregard her concerns as disorientation caused by her illness. I understood I needed to shift strategies. If confrontation didn't work, perhaps infiltration would. I claimed to have a change of heart. I apologized to Liam privately, explaining that everything had left me nervous and paranoid. I told him I wanted to mend our friendship and that brothers should stick together. Liam was suspicious at first, but his ego prevailed. He'd always enjoyed having power over me, and my apparent obedience contributed to that. He slowly began to relax his guard around me. I started going to see him in the house my parents had bought him. We would hang together, play video games, and talk about college. I pretended to be the supportive elder brother I had always aspired to be, suppressing my disdain whenever he smiled, that fake smile. It took weeks, but Liam ultimately came to trust me enough to leave me alone in his home. That's when I discovered them. The journals, secreted in a lockbox under his bed, describe years of manipulation and plotting. The entries dated back to when he was only 10 years old. Detailed notes on how to manipulate our parents, how to turn them against me, and how to ensure he got everything while I received nothing. He had investigated psychological manipulation techniques, gaslighting schemes, and ways to make someone appear insane. The most recent entries were about Margaret, how she had endangered his position by sticking up for me, and how she needed to be removed from the equation. There were research notes on numerous poisons, their effects, and how to deliver them without being detected. I photographed every single page, ensuring that the images were crisp and understandable. Then I carefully returned everything precisely how I had found it. I couldn't take the diaries quite yet. I needed to convey this evidence in a way that could not be ignored or explained away. I spent the following week preparing. I created many copies of everything, sent some to my grandfather's lawyer, and stored others on safe servers. I also contacted a handwriting specialist to confirm that the diaries were actually Liam's work. When I was ready, I scheduled a family meeting. Everyone was present, including Liam and my parents. I'd asked my granddad to lead the meeting and given him all of the evidence to present. The atmosphere was tense as Grandpa meticulously organized everything. The security footage, the missing drugs, the threatening notes, and finally the diary entries. He had brought printed copies for everyone to view, including the handwriting expert's interpretation. Liam's reaction was swift and severe. He leaped up, yelling that I had planted everything, broken into his home and faked the diaries. He accused me of being infatuated with him and of plotting to wreck his life out of jealousy. But flaws were beginning to appear in his performance. His story kept changing. First, he claimed the journals did not exist. Then he explained that they were private creative writing activities. Then he claimed that I had written them and placed them in his room. My parents attempted to protect him, but even they struggled. The evidence was overwhelming, and Liam's increasingly frantic protestations only made matters worse. When Grandpa showed my mother a diary entry, in which Liam described persuading our parents into purchasing him the car on my 16th birthday, her face turned white. The hush that ensued was deafening. My mother stared at the journal entry, her hands quivering as she read Liam's own words, outlining how he'd persuaded them I didn't deserve a birthday present, how he'd planted the idea that his happiness should suffice for mine. Liam's face has changed from crimson to pale. He grabbed the papers, attempting to pull them away, but my grandfather held them out of reach. That's when Liam turned to our parents, his voice taking on the little boy tone he'd honed over the years. He said I'd been preparing this for months, studying his handwriting and practicing reproducing it. He further stated that I drugged him in order to gain access to his home, that I was dangerous, and that I should be separated from the family. My father stood forward, torn between defending his golden kid and confronting the increasing evidence. He requested to see the genuine journals, not photos. When I explained that I had left them at Liam's residence to prevent allegations of stealing, he saw this as confirmation of my lying. The conference descended into anarchy. My aunts were debating among themselves, with some claiming the evidence was too convenient, and others pointing out Liam's inconsistent arguments. My maternal grandparents, who had always been aloof, suggested that we see a family therapist to work through these misconceptions. But Margaret's voice broke through the background commotion. Despite her infirmity, she explained clearly about the terror she felt when she woke up to discover Liam standing over her bed, how her water tasted funny that night, and the cruel notes that appeared under her door, always in Liam's preferred blue ink. Liam's mask slipped for a brief period. A spark of wrath crossed his face before he calmed down and began crying again. He raced to our mother, putting his face in her shoulder and crying about how I had turned everyone against him. The meeting ended without a resolution. My parents left with Liam, and my mother gave me a look of utter hatred. My aunts left in different automobiles, widening the family gap. Only my paternal grandparents remained. Grandpa's jaw was set with resolve. That night, I was unable to sleep. I kept checking the locks, looking out the windows, and leaping at every sound. Around 2 a.m., I overheard something outside. Through the bedroom window, I noticed Liam's car parked down the street, the engine running. I woke up my grandfather, and we watched as Liam sat in his car for over an hour before driving off. The next morning, we discovered our mailbox had been smashed, with the metal twisted and broken. At 3:47 a.m., the security camera showed Liam doing it with a baseball bat. We filed a police report, but the officer appeared suspicious when we explained our family situation. They deemed it a civil matter in the absence of more clear evidence of genuine harm. They would speak with Liam about the mailbox, But that was all they could do. The harassment intensified in the following days. Dead flowers appeared at our door. Our car's tires were slashed while we were at the supermarket. Someone called in a bogus welfare check for my grandparents, claiming elder abuse. Each incident was meticulously organized to avoid leaving evidence that pointed directly to Liam. He always had an alibi, which our parents would generally give. They'd think he was at home, watching movies or studying for his forthcoming college classes. I began sleeping in shifts with my grandfather, with one of us constantly awake to keep watch. We put more cameras, better locks, and even a panic button that connects straight to the police. But Liam was astute. He understood just how far he could go without violating any legal boundaries. Then came the day Margaret's new medication disappeared. Not just a few tablets, but the whole bottle of her heart medication. The nurse claimed she had locked it in the medicine cabinet that morning, but by the afternoon, it had vanished. We searched the entire house. Margaret may experience another cardiac event if she does not take the tablets. The doctor ordered an emergency prescription, but the pharmacist stated it would take hours to fill. That was when I recognized Liam's car in the pharmacy's parking lot. He was just sitting there, observing and waiting. When I spotted him, he grinned and waved before driving away. I knew he was not going to stop. It wasn't about money or preference anymore. This was all about control, punishing us for daring to challenge him, and he was getting more aggressive. My grandfather and I chose to take matters into our own hands. We recruited a second private investigator, one who specializes in complex family cases. We needed someone who could monitor Liam without being noticed, document his movements, and catch him in the act. Laura, the investigator, was a former police detective who had witnessed numerous family confrontations. She listened to our narrative without passing judgment, considered all of our information, and concluded that Liam was hazardous. She began surveillance immediately. Within a week, Laura had captured Liam following Margaret's nurse home and sitting outside her apartment for hours. She caught him on camera buying massive amounts of over-the-counter drugs that, when combined, might be fatal. She traced him to medical websites, where he looked up chemical interactions under fictitious identities. But the most troubling revelation occurred when she followed him to a meeting with someone she recognized, a well-known drug dealer who specialized in prescription drugs. Liam gave over cash and received a tiny gift in exchange. We wanted to go to the police right away, but Laura recommended caution. We needed to catch him with the chemicals and prove intent to harm. She proposed that we set a trap. The plan was straightforward. We had indicated that Margaret was going in for a normal examination and that she would be alone in the hospital for several hours while tests were performed. In reality, she'd be safe at a friend's house as Laura and another investigator waited in the hospital. Liam took the bait. Laura's cameras captured him entering the hospital with a small bag and headed directly for the room number we had discussed in the family group chat. But when he discovered it was empty, he panicked. He contacted our parents, frantic, and said he had gone to see Margaret but could not find her. My mother called me right away, yelling about how I had endangered Margaret by relocating her without informing anyone. I feigned dumb, claiming she was precisely where we had agreed she would be. The uncertainty saved us time. Laura followed Liam as he searched the hospital, becoming increasingly angry. Finally, he flung the bag into a medical waste can and stormed away. Laura retrieved it right away. Inside were enough narcotics to trigger a lethal overdose. We now have him. Actual proof of intent to injure. Laura had chronicled the full sequence of events, from substance purchase to hospital visit. We took everything to the police. But Liam still had one more card to play. That night, before the cops could arrive, he was at our house with our parents. They requested to be let in, claiming they needed to speak. Despite my better judgment, we opened the door. Liam appeared different. Calm, collected, and almost tranquil. He sat in the living room and declared that he had done a lot of thinking. He wanted to apologize and make things right. He even recommended family counseling. My parents defended him, saying he had come to them in tears, understanding how his actions had broken the family apart. They wanted us to withdraw the police report and address it as a family. My mother actually got on her knees and begged me to give Liam another opportunity. But I saw through it. The way Liam's gaze kept darting to Margaret. The way he positioned himself between her and the door, and the way his hand kept reaching for his pocket. I excused myself to use the restroom and phoned Laura. She was already on her way, having followed Liam's movements. She advised me to keep them talking because cops were on their way. When I returned to the living room, Liam offered to prepare tea for everyone. A peace offering, he explained. He insisted on using Margaret's unique blend, which benefited her heart condition. Red flags went off in my head. I watched him make tea in the kitchen, keeping his body tilted so we couldn't see what he was doing. When he brought out the tray, he made a point of personally handing Margaret her cup, his smile unwavering. Before she could take a sip, I knocked the cup from her grasp. It smashed on the floor, spilling tea everywhere. Liam's mask finally cracked. He lunged at me, yelling that I had wrecked everything. Margaret was meant to pay for inciting our parents against him. That I was supposed to suffer for existing, for being born first, and for forcing him to fight so hard for what should have been his. My father attempted to pull him back, but Liam shoved him away with startling force. He reached into his pocket and brought out a knife, not a large one but sharp enough to cause damage. Laura burst through the door, accompanied by 2 police officers. Liam spun toward them, holding the knife in his hand. Everything froze for a brief moment. Then Liam did something neither of us expected. He chuckled in a chilly, hollow tone that made my skin crawl. He dropped the knife and raised his hands while still laughing. As the policeman cuffed him, he looked straight at me and spoke 5 words that froze me to the bone. "This isn't over, dear brother." The police took Liam away, but the damage to our family was already done. My parents were standing in our living room, looking lost and devastated. The truth about their golden child became undeniably evident. My mother slumped into a chair and sobbed uncontrollably. Not for me or Margaret, but for Liam. She kept insisting on an explanation, that this was not the son she knew. My father stood there, years passing in minutes. Laura got the tea tested. It contained a deadly amount of the painkillers Liam attempted to dispose of in the hospital. If Margaret had drunk even a few sips, she would have died within hours. The police accused Liam with attempted suicide, possession of illicit narcotics, and stalking. Despite the overwhelming evidence, my parents hired the best lawyer they could afford, depleting their funds to defend the son who attempted to kill his own grandma. The family group chat erupted again. Those who defended Liam remained mute, while others expressed shock and disgust. Some accused my parents of enabling him. Others accused me of pushing him to this point. The family had been destroyed beyond repair. But there was a peculiar quiet in our house. Margaret was safe. The incessant worry and paranoia could finally subside. We had won, but it felt hollow. I had utterly lost my parents, and despite everything, it still stung. Grandpa hired protection for the home just in case. Liam was on bail and had to stay at our parents' place while wearing an ankle monitor. But we all knew it wasn't over. The trial would be severe. The family turmoil unfolded in public. I spent the following few days helping Margaret recuperate from her stress. Her heart condition had deteriorated as a result of the continual dread, and she required 24-hour care. I moved into her room and slept on a cot next to her bed. One night, she grasped my hand and squeezed it lightly. She told me she was pleased of me for saving her life. She also stated something that surprised me. She felt terrible for Liam, not for what he'd done, but for who he had become. She believed our parents had created a monster by never telling him no, convincing him that he was entitled to everything, and teaching him that I was less than human, merely an impediment to his happiness. They had deprived him of empathy and basic human decency in their attempt to provide him with everything. The truth of her words struck hard. Liam was not born evil, he was molded and encouraged to be this way. And now everyone was paying the price. Laura continued to serve as our security consultant, assisting us in preparing for the trial. She had unearthed additional evidence. Liam had been planning this for months, possibly years. The journal entries were only the top of the iceberg. She discovered internet posts under false names in which he asked for help on inheritance law and how to make deaths appear natural. She realized that he had communicated with others who had effectively eliminated family members for money. He had been studying, learning, and preparing. The prosecutor was putting up a solid case, but Liam's counsel was effective. They portrayed him as a troubled young guy who snapped under pressure and needed treatment, not prison. They had character witnesses lined up, instructors and family members who had only seen his lovely public face. My parents refused to speak with me, but I heard from other members that they were supporting Liam. They came by every day, bringing him home-cooked food and books. They'd convinced themselves that everything was a misunderstanding that would be sorted up before trial. Then, 3 weeks before the trial was scheduled to begin, Liam disappeared. The ankle monitor was discovered cut off in his bedroom, along with a message that simply said, "I'll be seeing you." My parents were frantic, phoning the police and swearing that he had been kidnapped. However, security footage from their residence showed Liam stepping out the front door at 4 a.m., carrying a backpack and appearing completely calm. The police issued a warrant for Liam's arrest, but he had prepared carefully. He'd emptied his bank accounts days earlier, sold his automobile to a private bidder for cash, and obtained a false ID. Laura discovered that he had been researching nations without extradition treaties for several weeks. My parents, unsurprisingly, blamed me. They arrived at our house yelling that I was to blame for Liam's actions and had destroyed their family. My father attempted to push his way inside, but the security guard that Grandpa had hired stopped him. They left and threatened to sue us for emotional anguish. We spent the next few days on high alert. Every slow-moving car, every unexpected knock on the door, and every unusual noise at night made us nervous. Margaret hardly slept, leaping at shadows. The stress was taking a toll on her already frail health. Then the packages started to arrive. Small boxes with no return address contained images of our house taken from various perspectives. Photos of me in the grocery shop. Views of Margaret from her bedroom window. Each one featured Liam's handwritten statement on the back. Still watching. You can't hide forever. Family comes first. Laura traced the packages to various post offices throughout the state. Liam was moving around, being mobile, but he was also becoming sloppy. One of the images revealed a reflection in a car window, revealing a partial license plate that Laura's connections were able to locate. Melissa, the car's owner, reported it stolen a week earlier. Laura investigated deeper and discovered that Melissa had been in contact with Liam via a dating app. She'd undoubtedly handed him the automobile freely, another person captivated by his actions. We were getting close to locating him when calamity struck. I had gone out to pick up Margaret's medicine, leaving her with the nurse and security guard. I returned an hour later, and the front door was wide open. The security officer lay asleep on the lawn. The nurse was confined in the bathroom, and Margaret was gone. My palm shook as I dialed 911. The house was in disarray with furniture overturned and Margaret's pills thrown across the floor. There were traces of a scuffle in her room, with her emergency alarm buttons crushed to bits. The police arrived quickly, followed by Laura and her squad. They discovered chloroform residue on a cloth in the garden, as well as tire tracks from a vehicle other than the stolen automobile. Liam had assistance this time. My telephone rang. Unknown number. I responded on speaker so that the police could hear. Liam's voice was different now. There will be no more playing or acting like a small boy. Only cold calculation. He assured me that Margaret was secure for the time being, but this could change. He wanted the entire inheritance money that he was entitled to. And he wanted me to publicly acknowledge that I had faked all of the evidence against him. The cops attempted to track the call, but he was using a burner phone. He gave me 24 hours to collect the money and record the video confession. Then he hung up. Those were the longest 24 hours of my life. The police established a command center in our living room. The FBI became engaged because it was now a kidnapping case. My parents arrived asking to be invited while swearing Liam would not injure anyone. Laura worked her contacts while the official investigation was ongoing. She had a theory. Liam couldn't do it alone. Someone was assisting him, someone with experience. She began digging into the folks Liam had been talking to online regarding inheritance plans. The breakthrough occurred from an unexpected source. One of my aunts, who had been solidly on Liam's side, called me crying. She had received a call from Liam requesting money and threatening to harm Margaret if she did not cooperate. Her disguise had finally loosened. She had recorded the call. In the background we could hear a woman's voice telling Liam to hurry. Laura improved the audio and processed it with speech recognition. Laura was a well-known con artist who targeted the elderly. With this clue, the FBI investigated their likely whereabouts. Laura possessed a cabin 3 hours north, which she received from one of her victims. It was remote, ideal for hiding someone. The rescue operation was scheduled at morning. I wanted to go, but the FBI wouldn't let me. So I waited at home with Grandpa, both of us pacing and unable to eat or relax. The call arrived at 7:23 a.m. They had discovered Margaret. She was dehydrated and afraid, but otherwise okay. Liam and Laura had been apprehended following a brief attempt to escape. The cabin was filled with evidence, more journals, detailed plans for other family members they intended to target, and studies on untraceable poisons. When I watched Margaret being wheeled into the hospital, I broke down in tears. She was pale and wobbly, but she managed a little grin when she spotted me. She told me Liam had complained for hours about how unfair life had been to him, how he deserved everything, and how I had stolen his birthright by being born first. Laura, it turned out, had been mentoring Liam for several months. She discovered him on the forums where he had inquired about inheritance law. She'd identified an easy target, a young man with wealthy grandparents and a strong sense of entitlement. She'd taught him everything and intended to split the money after Margaret was gone. The trial date was moved up. Liam attempted to claim Laura had exploited him, and that he was also a victim. But the evidence was overwhelming. His writings, the recordings, and the testimony of several witnesses. Even my parents couldn't dispute it after hearing recordings of Liam coldly discussing how to make Margaret's death appear normal. My parents' hearts broke on the day Liam was condemned. My mother greeted me outside the courthouse, looking as if she had aged 20 years. She attempted to apologize, but the words would not come. My father just stood there, shoulders drooping, realizing what their favoritism had created. I wanted to forgive them. Part of me still wanted their affection and approval. But Margaret's words echoed in my head. They had manufactured this situation. They'd taught Liam that I was less than human, and that he deserved everything. Their weeping did not erase 22 years of neglect. Liam got 25 years. Laura received 30 because of her earlier transgressions. As they dragged him away, Liam took one last look at me. There is no more fury or threat. Only emptiness. He had lost everything by attempting to grab what was never truly his. The family gradually began to recover, but it would never be the same. Some family apologized for not realizing the reality sooner. Others stayed away, ashamed of their involvement in aiding Liam. The family conversation was disbanded. Holiday gatherings became smaller and quieter affairs. My parents attempted to restore their relationship with me, but I kept them at arm's length. They had shown me who they were, and I could not forget. They ended up relocating to another state, beginning over with no one knowing their story. I heard they were volunteering with disturbed adolescents now, attempting to atone in their own way. Grandpa and Margaret have formally adopted me. At 23, it may have been stupid, but it meant everything. For the first time in my life, my parents selected me, putting me first. They threatened to remove my parents' inheritance, which became a trust fund for my future. My grandparents helped me graduate college debt-free. I got a job I loved and began treatment to deal with everything that had transpired. I gradually created the life I had always desired, one in which I was respected and mattered. Margaret's health improved once the tension was relieved. She survived another 6 years, dying quietly in her sleep at 91. At her funeral, I talked about her strength and wisdom, and how she had saved me just as much as I had saved her. Grandpa and I hugged as we bid our goodbyes to the woman who had taught me what real family was. The house felt empty without her, but her presence remained in every room. Grandpa and I kept each other company, 2 generations united by common trauma and affection. He taught me his business, preparing me to take over someday. We never talked about Liam, but I'd see him glancing at old family photos with a grief I understood all too well. Years later, I received a letter from Liam in prison. He wrote about seeking therapy and ultimately recognizing what he had done. He did not seek for forgiveness. He only wanted me to know he was trying to improve. I never replied. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. Life moves on. I found someone who understood my delicate relationship with family. We created our own customs, definitions of love, and loyalty. When we had children, I made sure they knew they were equally appreciated and valued. The circle of favoritism ended with me. Sometimes I pass past my parents' former house, which has been sold to strangers. I recall the youngster who just wanted to be loved and hoped things would improve. That youngster deserved better, yet he persevered. He discovered his true family and learned that blood does not always equal affection. Grandpa is still with me, albeit he is slowing down lately. We care for each other as a family should. Every Sunday we go to Margaret's grave together, bringing fresh flowers and updates on our lives. I tell her about my children, my profession, and the normal life I've created out of the ashes of our family's demise. Liam is scheduled for release in a few years. Given the gravity of his offenses, my lawyer says he will almost certainly be denied. Part of me hopes he has truly changed. Prison has given him boundaries that our parents never did. However, just in case, I have established an amazing security system. Because family trauma never truly goes away. You simply learn to live with it and construct something greater despite it. Every holiday, birthday, and family milestone bears the weight of what was and could have been. But I'm okay now. Really okay. I have the family I selected, the life I created, and the love I deserved. And sometimes the best retribution is simply living well in the face of all they tried to take away from you. The video I released years ago still circulates on occasion, serving as a viral reminder of how swiftly a family can shatter. People contacted me for updates, unable to believe it was true. I never respond. Even if the plot continues, that chapter is no longer open. Because that is what survival looks like. Not a dramatic conclusion, just a peaceful continuing. Getting up every day and deciding to be better than your past experiences. Creating love where there was disregard. Creating a family where there was only blood. And understanding that sometimes the best gift your parents can offer you is teaching you who you should not become.